There are some problems here. Sorry, big time.
I'm so upset. Oh my God.
Turks, Cenk Ugrana Kasparian with you guys. The online news show, obviously, and hence we start with breaking news.
We start with a question, actually. My question to you is, if the US isn't being pressured to fight a war against Iran on behalf of Israel, why is it that anyone who's against said war is referred to as a Jew hater?
Or an anti-Semite, as I was a couple of times this morning on Piers Morgan. That is weird. Like, wait, if we're not fighting the war for Israel, why would anybody being opposed to the war mean that they're an anti-Semite?
Not only that, if the war isn't about Israel, which people are telling me that's the case, it has nothing to do with Israel. It's all about freeing the people of Iran.
Okay, I was going to start on a much lighter note about how Taco Bell
I'm in a mood. I'm in a mood.
How Taco Bell is underrated, but apparently we're
Taco Bell is underrated, number one. But we don't have time for fun today, okay?
Okay, we don't have time for fun. That's tomorrow. All right. Anyway, so real quick, since you started, and then we'll get to the stories. On the Piers Morgan this morning, I mean, first of all, my heart's broken over General Wesley Clark. I don't know who he's working for, but he's now changed his tune and is pro-war with Iran. It was so heartbreaking to see. Okay, but now everyone admits, even the pro-Israel people, to your point, Anna, they're like, well, of course Israel wants the war. Any decent country would. I mean, Norway does, Israel does, Taiwan. I'm kidding about Norway and Taiwan. But it's so obvious that they can't hide it anymore. So now what they're doing is, well, sure, Israel wants the war, but it's great for America too.
How is it good?
And so, by the way, if it's so great for Israel and maybe tangentially beneficial to us, why don't you do the war and you pay for the war and you fight the war and we'll chip in around the edges like you're planning?
No, how about we don't chip in at all?
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, of course. So, anyways, the real topic and what's actually happening in regards to the war, which is a lot, is coming up in a second. Then Mike Huckabee, obviously you guys have seen that he says Israel should take over the Middle East. We've got more on that and reactions and developments. And then as if the world wasn't chaotic enough, the top Mexican cartel leader has been taken out, which has led to significant violence in Mexico. We'll tell you about that. And then a little bit later in the program, Epstein infiltrated a lot of American academia. Which colleges did he infiltrate the most? What was he looking for? That story's coming up later in the program as well. All right, Casper, let's get started.
Well, we begin with Iran, of course. Are we going to war? Are we not going to war? We still don't know. Now, there were, fears that the US would strike Iran over the weekend. Luckily, that didn't happen. I don't know if the Trump administration is going to avoid a war. We still have no idea. But with that in mind, we should talk about the fact that Steve Witkoff, who's supposed to be engaging in diplomatic talks, is being very undiplomatic. Take a look.
They're probably a week away from having industrial grade bomb making material.
From there, it's only a few months, possibly a few weeks, before they get enough enriched uranium for the first bomb.
Why they haven't capitulated? Why under this sort of pressure with the amount of sea power, naval power that we have over there, why they haven't come to us and said, we profess that we don't want a weapon.
It could be due to the fact that members of the Trump administration, including Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff, is lying about Iran and how these negotiations are going. Now, Steve Witkoff had an interview with Lara Trump over at Fox News, which we're gonna show you some highlights from. But it is kind of amazing, Cenk, to see Steve Witkoff regurgitate the same lies that we've been hearing Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu say over and over again for literally decades.
Yeah, Trump says something right before we got started on the show that's going to be relevant to everything that Anna's going to give you here, because they keep going back and forth between, oh, we could do a peace deal to we're going to obliterate them. And of course, the devil's in the details, and there's a couple of phrases that Trump used, others have used that give you a real indication of which direction we're going, so we'll get to that. And then people talking about how we should go after the top purveyor of terrorism and aggression in the Middle East. And I'm like, whoa, I don't know that we should attack Israel. So
why? Why not?
So we're also going to debunk the mythology between who's the aggressor in the Middle East, Iran or Israel.
All you need to do is have a pulse to know what the reality of the situation is. But nonetheless, I just want to remind you all of what we heard from President Donald Trump over the summer following the bombing, the airstrikes that took place against Iran's nuclear facilities. Here's what Trump had to say about that.
The devastating US strike on Fordo destroyed the site's critical infrastructure and rendered the enrichment facility totally inoperable. It was devastated. We assess that the American strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities have set back Iran's ability to develop nuclear weapons for many years to come.
So how exactly do you go from we have obliterated Iran's nuclear facilities, obliterated them, to Steve Witkoff saying that Iran is a week away from having enough bomb-making materials? Okay, they have enriched uranium up to 60%. You need it to be enriched up to 90%. There's no evidence that they have done that. And even if they did have enriched uranium, which they do not, well, how are they gonna build a bomb if their nuclear facilities have been obliterated? Like the thing that, Cenk, I can't get past is how they lie to us to our faces to manufacture consent for a war that we would pay for, that our soldiers would risk their lives for, and would not benefit the United States at all. It would only be fought on behalf of Israel. Iran does not pose any type of threat to the United States. They have no weaponry, no ballistic missiles that could reach the United States. Yet we are already spending a ton of money by deploying all these military assets to that region in order to be prepared for potential war with Iran that we shouldn't be fighting.
Yeah.
Now Witkoff is supposed to be engaged in diplomatic talks with Iran. He's allegedly trying to get some sort of nuclear deal, possibly a missile deal, although Iran says, no, we're not going to negotiate about our ballistic missiles. We need to have a way of defending ourselves because, look, fact of the matter is we live in a region where you have an unhinged, belligerent country like Israel that has bombed every single one of its neighbors. Yet Witkoff lied about Iran's intentions and nuclear capabilities in an interview with Lara Trump on Fox News. So here's a longer version of the statements he made in regard to their nuclear capability.
Well, I think the president he gave Jared and I direction before we went over there. There were red lines, zero enrichment. We have to have the material back. They say that it's all about their civil program, and yet they've been enriching well beyond the number that you need for civil nuclear. It's up to 60%. They're probably a week away from having industrial grade bomb making material.
Now, it also appears as though Witkoff is making a claim that Iran is unwilling to have a conversation about their nuclear capabilities when that's not the case. Tehran's official position is that it doesn't seek nuclear weapons and that the development of such weapons is banned by a fatwa issued by Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And Iranian leaders have repeatedly professed that they don't seek a nuclear bomb. Now, people's eyes are gonna glaze over when I start talking about the difference between Sunni and Shia Muslims, but Iran is represented by Shiite Muslims, okay? They are different from Sunni Muslims, and believe it or not, in Iran, they do have that fatwa against nuclear weapons. I think that was a mistake, to be honest with you, because if Iran had a nuclear weapon, it would serve as a deterrent against the hostility and aggression that they're experiencing from Israel and the United States. But I know that that's a provocative point to make. Cenk, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so there are three stated reasons for why we're supposed to go to Iraq, and three stated reasons for what we, I'm sorry, Iran, that was a funny Freudian slip, or appropriate one, and three stated goals of the negotiations. So let's go one by one. One, at this point, everyone acknowledges it is in fact for Israel. I was at a panel this morning with two proponents of the war, in fact, three proponents of the war when you include General Wesley Clark. They all admitted yes. Israel would gain a lot from this. Israel definitely does want this. The fact that they're conceding that is amazing, but it's partly because it's inarguable. This is, in our opinion, it's 100% for Israel. In their opinion, I guess it's 70 or 80% for Israel. So why are we even having this discussion? Second stated reason is, oh my God, we care so much about the Iranian people and they are crying out for freedom. And we just care so much about Muslim lives and civilians that the Israelis do. God, they love the Muslim civilians so much.
Oh, so much.
Yeah, and so does American power brokers, etc. And we're doing this we're gonna bomb the Iranian people on behalf of the Iranian people. Same exact thing we heard in Iraq. We're gonna be greeted as liberators. They literally said that today on the program, that we would be greeted as liberators in Iran as well. So they're just recycling these things. So the third one is weapons of mass destruction, also recycled, and they say, well, you know, uranium, but wait. Number one, they weren't close to a nuke to begin with. Number two, we knocked out their facilities, totally gone. Now, number three, this is important. What's left is they say since everyone's allowed to enrich uranium to energy levels where you can use it for electricity, and all countries are allowed, relatively speaking, are allowed to do that. There's no reason why we should be different. But we will, the Iranians apparently have offered, but we will cap it at the civilian level, and we will not go above that. And you could bring in inspectors to make sure we're not going above that. And the second part of the deal when it comes to uranium is the ones that have been enriched to 60%, we are going to hand over. We'll give them to you. So if you cared about the uranium, this thing is totally over. Iran has conceded, and they're, according to the reports we're getting back from the negotiations, they will give us what we want. That is why what Steve Witkoff said to Lara Bush there is so important. Bush, what is with the Freudian slips today? Trump, although again, very appropriate, okay. What he said was zero enrichment. No, wait a minute, that's not what you were saying before. You were like civilian use, it makes sense. Right. If you're asking for zero enrichment, you're saying we'd like to humiliate you on top.
Well, let's do a little shortcut here, Cenk.
Okay.
I think shortcuts are important, so you fully understand what the reality is, and you don't get sucked into the dog and pony show that Americans tend to get sucked into. This is not about Iran's weapons. This is about Israel wanting regime change in Iran. Period. That's all this is about. This started off with claims of, oh, Iran is such a threat because of their nuclear capability, which they never really had. And then we get the JCPOA, right? That was signed under the Obama administration in 2015 that ensured that there were intrusive checks on Iran's behavior, what they were doing, whether they were enriching uranium. Trump comes in 2018, rips that up, paving the way for Iran to do what? To enrich uranium, which could be used for a nuclear weapon. Now, they never enriched it up to 90%, which is what's required to build a nuclear bomb. What they did is they enriched uranium up to 60% in order to have a latent deterrent to Israel's aggression. But it doesn't matter. And then Israel comes in and says, no, the nuclear weapons, that's not enough. We want to make sure that they don't have ballistic missiles. We want to make sure that Iran has no way to defend themselves, which is ridiculous, and no one would agree to that, obviously. But again, it's not even about the missiles. Even if Iran had said, you know what, we concede to the missiles, we're total idiots, and we're gonna open ourselves up to being attacked by Israel and the United States with no means to defend ourselves, I guarantee you, Israel would not be happy because they want regime change. That's what this is about.
100%, and that gets to a critical part of the negotiations. Guys, Iran is offering up something that is very reasonable. Take all the uranium we've enriched to 60%, and we will not go beyond the civilian levels, and you can make sure. If America asks for more than that, what they're saying to Iran is, no, we don't really mean it about the uranium. Even if you give us everything, it's not gonna satisfy us, because we work 100% for Israel, and we're going to keep going until we get regime change. So Iran is saying this is our limit. If you go past that limit, we know we're screwed anyway. There is no amount of capitulation that will satisfy you until we hand you all of our heads on a stick, so that Israel can put a puppet in here and completely control us and leave us utterly defenseless. And they're not going to agree to that. They're never going to agree to that. So when you see Witkoff talking about red lines, that is an Israeli trick. You get the president to vaguely say something and then you go, that's a red line. And if you don't insist that the Iranians or the Iraqis or the Syrians do that, then you're a coward and no one will believe you anymore. You'll be completely discredited. You must go to war. They cross the red line. No, you set up these artificial red lines to start the war in the first place. I have more, but Anna, give me more.
Nonetheless, the level of patience and willingness to negotiate that we are seeing from the Iranian side of this equation is amazing, is absolutely amazing. So for instance, over the weekend, the foreign minister of Iran had an interview with Margaret Brennan over at CBS. And he says in regard to enrichment, to your point, Cenk, we enrich uranium to a certain extent for our own energy needs. Enrichment is our right. We are a member of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, something that Israel is not part of, even though they have nuclear weapons, a clandestine nuclear program. Nonetheless, he continues, and we have every right to enjoy peaceful nuclear energy, including enrichment. How we use this right is something is related to us only. And he's right about that. And by the way, for those, this is a tangent and I'm not gonna go on and on about it, but nuclear energy is important if you're serious about climate change. If you're really worried about climate change, I'm sorry, but wind and solar isn't enough to close the gap left behind by no longer drilling or fracking. And so if you want clean energy that isn't gonna continue accelerating the climate emergency that we're in, we're gonna need to, unfortunately, rely on nuclear energy. So this idea that you're going to ban all uranium enrichment, you're gonna ban any nuclear power in Iran is ridiculous to me. And by the way, yes, it's an oil-rich country, but that's how their economy runs. They export their oil and they rely on some level of nuclear energy for their own energy needs. Go ahead, Cenk.
Yeah. So the other absurd demands are get rid of all your ballistic missiles and be completely defenseless. No country on earth would agree to that. Just the mere fact of saying that out loud shows you work for the Israelis, because no objective person would say that that's a fair ask. So that's a way of saying, no, we're gonna go to this war no matter what. Even if Iran gives us everything, and we humiliate every single person in Iran, not good enough until I have their heads on a stake. Then they demand to be in control of Iranian foreign policy. You're not allowed to have proxy groups. You're not allowed to talk to anyone, Hamas, Hezbollah, or otherwise. You're not allowed to spend money in any direction. In other words, just hand the country over to Israel. Now, I get why Israel's upset about Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran funding them. We're not unaware of that, I get it. That's Israel's business, not 1% our business, okay? Second of all, yeah, I'm sure Iran is also upset about how Israel funds terrorism throughout the Middle East,
100%.
Has attacked 7 of their neighbors. If we're talking about who's the bigger aggressor, American media does this amazing trick where they show you one frame and not the whole context. So they go, Israel is a small country. Well, yeah, I guess that's true. At some point, Jews were victims. Oh, that's definitely true. Holocaust, pogroms, etc. And the Bible, special ally, etc. See, Israel is the victim, and Iran is the terrible, evil Muslim terrorist aggressors. Now, wait a minute. When you break it down, look at the whole context. How many countries has Iran attacked and taken land from in the Middle East? 0. How many countries has Israel attacked? 7. How many have they taken land from? Well, they've taken 53% of Gaza. They're now trying to annex the West Bank. They already annexed the Golan Heights. They're in southern Lebanon and western Syria. So who is expanding their territory? Iran has not expanded their territory 1 inch. Israel has grabbed the West Bank, Gaza, Golan Heights, and now occupying Lebanon and Syria. So they continue their imperial fascist expansion in the Middle East. But the entire time, our media is lying to you and saying, oh, the people that Israel is attacking, they're the terrorists, and Israel had to kill them and take their land. You had to take the land of the terrorists? No, all of this is an illusion meant to trick you into thinking, oh, I have to attack Iran. I have to spend all my money and I have to send my son to go die in Iran So Israel can take more land, the Middle East can be completely defenseless so they can get to Greater Israel. And at this point, they're no longer hiding Greater Israel. In fact, our ambassador, Mike Huckabee, we'll have more on it later in the program, said yes, Israel should take the entire Middle East.
Yeah.
Well, so now it's abundantly clear to everyone except our representatives, our politicians, 95% of them bought by Israel, the Israeli lobby, and our news reporters who are like, I don't see any territorial expansion. I see Muslim equals dirty, terrible, should be killed and destroyed. I see Israel, beautiful, precious little victim. Oh, you're telling me you're not going to go to another disastrous war in the Middle East on behalf of Israel? Anti-Semite. Okay, yeah. So now, Anna, right before the show, Trump came out and said something that was really important. Number one, he was talking about General Dan Cain, raising Cain.
Yeah, can I reset for that part, please?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about, well, Lindsey Graham's claims and what is likely happening behind the scenes over at the Trump administration when it comes to possible war with Iran. So, Senator Lindsey Graham, who salivates at the mere thought of going to war with Iran, told Barak Ravid, an Israeli insider and reporter over at Axios, that Trump is surrounded by people who are advising him against attacking Iran. Now, I didn't believe it just based on Trump's actions and behavior, but here's what he says, quote, I understand concerns about major military operations in the Middle East given past entanglements. However, the voices who counsel against getting entangled seem to ignore the consequences of letting evil go unchecked. Now, he's not talking about Israel, he's talking about Iran. He continues, it's increasingly clear to me that voices opposing entanglement and the risk associated with decisive action are getting louder. Time will tell as to how this plays out. Now, in an entirely separate report, Barak Ravid also claimed that the Joint Chiefs Chairman, General Dan Cain, is the one that's advising President Donald Trump against a prolonged conflict in Iran. Now, Trump later denied this claim in a lengthy essay he posted on Truth Social. Now, Cain, according to this report, has been the only military leader briefing Trump in recent weeks on the issue of Iran. And that same report, again by Barak Ravid, claims that Marco Rubio has been a bit of a fence sitter on Iran because he's too preoccupied with toppling Cuba. That's the only part of the report that I can fully believe, right? But here's the thing, I don't trust Ravid personally, and highlighting a specific general who might be advising Trump against a prolonged conflict with Iran might be a way of ousting him or getting the ball rolling on ousting him.
Yeah, so it might be. So let's break it down one by one. Did General Cain say that Iran is not going to be as easy as Venezuela and then it might take weeks or months? Well, if he didn't, he's an idiot, because literally every general thinks that. That's not even close to a conversation. Because in Venezuela, all we did was kidnap the leader. Now that's very difficult, and they did a brilliant job tactically, strategically. I think it's a disaster. Policy-wise, it's a disaster, but tactically they nailed that one. But in this case, we're not talking about that. We're talking about taking out more of their uranium facilities, although they're destroyed, their ballistic missiles. Not just taking out the Ayatollah, but taking out the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. Well, that's a full-blown war, and that won't take weeks or months. That'll take years. So if General Cain did not make Trump aware of that, he should be fired. Because you have to prepare whether you're going to go in or not. You can't get surprised, right? So my guess is that he's a competent enough general that he did say that. So now the question is that somebody just doing good reporting, to Anna's point, or someone outing him? Well, now Trump just came out right before we came on air live and said, so these people with their fake news about General Cain. And he said he's brilliant and he's didn't warn about a long war at all, thinks we could do this right away. But he added something that I really wanted to read to you guys because it's really important. Trump said he's not spoken of not doing Iran, referring to Cain. He has not spoken of not doing Iran or even the fake limited strikes that I have been reading about.
Oh, okay. So you're planning on doing a prolonged military campaign in Iran on behalf of Israel, essentially going back on all of reneging on your campaign promises, which isn't surprising. We live in America, and our politicians usually do renege on their campaign promises. But nonetheless, this will be a deeply unpopular war. It hasn't even started yet, and the majority of Americans are against it. Polling indicates that somewhere around 20% of Americans are in support of this war, and they're all Zionists. So have at it. But Republicans are toast. Okay, you can already kiss the midterms goodbye. But in terms of the next presidential election, this will make the Republican Party deeply, deeply unpopular because Americans are sick of these entanglements, especially in the Middle East. And it's just so clear that this isn't about benefiting the US. This is about benefiting a foreign country that leeches off of our resources and drags us into prolonged wars on a regular basis.
Yeah, so two different polls out actually. One, and this is a little bit back now, the momentum is building even more against this war, but one had it at 70% against the war. The other one had it at 85% of Americans are against this war.
Good.
So why are we even having this conversation? Do we live in a democracy or don't we?
We don't.
So if over 75, you combine the two polls, if over 75% of Americans don't want to go to this war, why are we going? Oh, right, because of the donors, because the voters have no effect on policy. We've shared with you long studies done by Princeton and Northwestern that show the bottom 90% has a 0% effect on policy. The top 10% has an enormous effect. And of course, the very, very top, the donors basically control the country. So they control it in a lot of different ways, but when it comes to foreign policy, Israel's the king of controlling America. If you don't, we can keep, the only people still debating that are the Israel First guys who are just calling the entire country anti-Semites now. They're saying that anybody who doesn't want to go to this war is an anti-Semite. Well, that's 85% of the country. At a bare minimum, it's 7 out of 10 Americans. Okay, so now when we look at Trump saying, no, it's fake news, we're not going to do limited strikes, and it's fake news that General Kane is concerned about how long it'll take. He's basically saying, if I go in, we're going in all the way, full bore. Well, I mean, that it couldn't be a bigger disaster. So I don't really care too much about how we got here, whether they tricked Trump into it. Oh, you'll be so tough and and it'll be an easy operation, just like Venezuela was and the first strike against Iran was. You'll be a hero, Donald Trump. Or they just gave him another couple $100 million because the Israeli lobby has given him over $300 million. Or they have blackmail, whatever the reason might be. Trump is perfectly aware that the American people definitely do not want this war. His campaign was anti-war, not pro-war. But now that he's in office, he is listening, it appears, 100% to Israel. And if they do actually start this war, then the debate is over. Our government is compromised. Donald Trump works for Israel, not for America. We already know Congress works for Israel. So then we get to the super hard question of, what are we gonna do to take our government back? Because if we lose soldiers in Iran, which we almost certainly will, they'll have died for a different country. It's already cost us billions of dollars. Iraq got into the trillions. Iran is 4 times the size of Iraq. So where do we go to get our money back? Where do we go to get justice from a government that has been captured by a different country? We're
$40 trillion in debt, and that debt began to blow up as we started fighting Israel's war in Iraq in 2003. So our country is a dying country, and it's specifically because everything we do seems to be centered on a foreign country that we should not be in any way associated with at this point, but I digress. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about Mike Huckabee and Cenk, I gotta be honest with you, all of these Arab and Muslim countries that are shocked upon learning about the Greater Israel Project. Did they not know? Anyway, don't answer that question.
Yeah, I'll answer it in the story. Come right back and get the answer.
Anti-Semitism.
Remote Dragon writes in, let's go to our members. Pentagon pocket change / Israeli funding could fund healthcare for all for the rest of the century. Nope, you don't get healthcare, you don't get paid family leave, you don't get college. By the way, Israel gets every one of those things, plus wars for them, plus extra funding. So don't tell me the government's not compromised. We haven't had any conversations about Trump and his plans for the American people. The only thing we've had conversations about is Trump's plans for tax cuts for the rich, deregulation for the rich, letting all the white collar criminals out of prison, and doing everything that Israel demands of us. The American people are dead last. That America First thing was the most ironic slogan in history. It's America dead last, and all the donors way above them. Compass Night in 1981 says, according to Netanyahu, Iran has been a week away from nuclear bombs since the 1980s. Yes, I mean, look, that's why I get so frustrated with the press, because it's not like Netanyahu's been hiding it. He's on tape. He's been saying it for 20 years. Iran's a week away. Iran's a week away. You have to attack Iran. America owes us a war. America owes us many wars. You're all anti-Semitic. And our media's like, I don't see it. What Israel? What? Even the Israel First guys are beginning to admit that, yeah, obviously Israel wants this war, but mainstream media is like, I can't tell. I'll never criticize Israel. I swear to God, I'll work for Israel for the rest of my life and lie to the American people. Apparently you have to take that oath before you get into mainstream media. Eclectic Miscellaneous says, it's almost like Cenk and Anna take turns playing good cop, bad cop, except instead they're taking turns playing fun host, angry host.
That's actually very true. That is the most astute observation anyone has ever made about the show.
And it's totally organic. It's depending on our mood. Okay.
The worst is when we're both in an angry mood.
Well, it happens.
Yeah.
So Bradshaw Crew of One with a very important message on Twitch. Remember Bradshaw criticized me for talking to Tucker Carlson, etc. Before we had a good exchange over it. And he said, Cenk, I watched Tucker and Huckabee with an open mind, and I changed my mind on him.
Yes!
I agree that he can be useful to our cause, and thank you for pushing me. Much love, brother.
I love you.
Yes. No, brother, it's not because you're saying we're right. It's because you had an open mind.
Yes, that's 100%
right. So thank you for having an open mind. And guys, again, that doesn't mean Tucker's an angel or that we need to support him in everything he does and that we shouldn't debate him on the things we totally disagree on, right? But on this issue, come on, he's obviously helpful. Obviously, not even close.
And not only that, he's right. He's done and said things that are insanely courageous. I wouldn't travel to Israel if someone put a gun to my head. But he did.
Yeah, I have a story about that. I should tell that in a bonus episode for the members of another friend who went to Israel and had a harrowing experience. You'd be nuts to go to Israel. Honestly, yeah, all right, I'll save it for later. Galfer71 writes in, my question, Cenk, is how did some investigative journalists like Laura Loomer know that Tucker Carlson was told by the White House about their meeting today? Did she maybe find out from Mossad agents in the Trump administration? So these days we're skeptical of everything, but no, not that one. She just saw it from Jake Sherman, who's another reporter. She then immediately launched a conspiracy theory about Jake Sherman and Tucker Carlson working together, which isn't remotely true, okay? But no, that was not a Mossad agent. That was just normal reporting that we found out. All right, we'll be back.
Tucker Carlson, a terrible friend.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. A couple of quick things here. I gotta read this super chat from America 1776 USA. I love that handle. Hey there, just wanted to say I really appreciate your channel. Your honesty and clarity stand out, and the effort you put into your content truly shows. Thanks for keeping your viewers informed. It means a lot. Thank you for saying that, man. And we really appreciate everybody. Like, it feels like the entire country is the same time is going, yeah, I think the Young Turks are telling the truth. Seems like they don't really care about the sides. They're just trying to get to what's real. And so we appreciate that, and we couldn't do it without you, so appreciate all your support. Speaking of which, CDN North's Dog Dad gifted a membership as usual, you're awesome. And Josh C8787 and Angela Row 5JD, thank you for joining, we appreciate that as well. They hit the join button under the video on YouTube, and that makes a huge difference for us. And finally, let's save you some money if you're gonna set up your own shop. Shopify is the best place to do it. We use them. And we tried a lot of different folks, and we're positive that Shopify is the best for us. So that's why we're pretty sure it's gonna be the best for you. And now you could just sign up for $1 per month. And that's a trial today. If you go to shopify.com/TYT, that's shopify.com/TYT. If you're setting up your own shop, I really wouldn't go anywhere else. That's the best deal there is. All right, Anna.
Well, we gotta talk about the aftermath of Tucker Carlson's interview with Mike Huckabee, the US ambassador to Israel. Take a look.
You have said it 3 times that God gave this land to this people. And so it is entirely fair for me with respect to ask, what land are you talking about? Because I just read Genesis 15, as I have many times. And that land, I think it says, from the Nile to the Euphrates, which is, once again, basically the entire Middle East. So God gave that land to his people, the Jews, or he didn't. You're saying he did. What does that mean? Does Israel have the right to that land?
It would be fine if they took it all.
Unsurprisingly, US Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, making that statement that it would be fine for Israel to steal all that land in the Middle East has led to some rage among Middle Eastern countries that certainly knew about the Greater Israel Project, but for whatever reason, pretend like they didn't know about it. So before I give you the backlash and how Huckabee has responded to it, Cenk, your 2 cents.
Yeah, look, guys, this is one of those stories that shows you who's actually in charge of our government. Because this guy's pretending to be our ambassador. As you're gonna see in the facts that Anna presents to you, 2 things have happened. Number 1, that is not our ambassador, that's the Israeli ambassador. You're gonna see it convincingly in this story. Number 2, it is causing tremendous problems for us, Americans, because he's doing their policy instead of our policy. So Anna, give him the facts.
So look, before we get to the blowback that Huckabee and the United States is experiencing as a result of Huckabee's statements, I want to show you one more clip from the exchange that Tucker Carlson had with Huckabee, because right after giving Israel carte blanche to basically take all this land in the Middle East, Huckabee seemed to realize, oh, I said the quiet part out loud and maybe I need to do a little bit of damage control. So he did attempt that immediately after the statements you just heard. So let's take a look at that.
You think it would be fine if the state of Israel took over all of Jordan?
They don't want to take it over. They're not asking to take it over.
But you're saying that the reason that Israel is illegitimate, has this inherent right to exist, is because, in part because God gave it to his people. And I am going to the same Bible that you're referring to and noticing that that is a huge piece of land. So if God gave them that land, then they have a right to take it now by your definition, unless I'm missing something completely.
Well, I think you're missing something, because they're not asking to go back to take all of that, but they are asking to at least take the land that they now occupy, they now live in, they now own legitimately, and it is a safe haven for them.
But may I ask though, as because you're explaining what Christian Zionism is and your theological beliefs. And you think you just said it would be fine with you if the state of Israel took all of Jordan, all of Syria, all of Lebanon.
That's really not exactly what I'm trying to say.
I'm asking, Tucker. Is that what you said? I thought that's what you just said.
It was somewhat of a hyperbolic statement in that, if that's what you feel like that we're talking about, but it isn't.
On 2 occasions in that clip, you heard Mike Huckabee say they're not asking to take over that land. No, they're not asking, they're just doing it. They're doing it using our money. They're doing it using our soldiers who fight their wars in these Middle Eastern countries to essentially turn these Middle Eastern countries into failed states so they can take over. That's what's been happening in Syria. I mean, the US has been arming Al-Qaeda terrorists in Syria so Israel can have its way with that country. After the toppling of Bashar al-Assad's regime, of course. And they want to do the same thing with Iran, with our money, with our soldiers. You guys get the point. But anyway, going back to the heart of this matter, Israel taking over the entire Middle East, that is what they're attempting to do. It's called the Greater Israel Project. There's no question about it. And despite Huckabee's attempt to run cover for Israel, the damage of his comments has been done, for whatever that means, right? Because you have all these various countries joining forces to put out a statement, a strongly worded letter, which they released on Sunday. And those nations include Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Bahrain, UAE, Qatar, Indonesia, Pakistan, Turkey, Syria, Kuwait, Lebanon, Oman, the Palestinian Authority, and several Arab governing bodies. Now, obviously, that's not fully a list of different countries. The Palestinian Authority is a governing body. But nonetheless, really, you guys didn't know what Israel's game has been for decades? You're gonna pretend like you're surprised by this? This has been the whole game. So let's see, Jordan, you were helping Israel during the 12-day war. Did you ever think to maybe ask yourselves why Israel wants regime change in Iran? So look, Cenk, I get it. I get that all these various Middle Eastern countries, Arab majority countries, have turned into cucks for Israel, not the people. I love the people, I'm talking about their leadership. And it's because the US, especially in the case of like Egypt, we bribe the hell out of them to play nice with Israel. So it's not just the money that we give to Israel, it's all the money that we spend to either destroy these Middle Eastern countries on behalf of Israel or bribe these Middle Eastern countries to play nice with Israel.
Yeah, so there's two sets of countries within that group. There's Egypt, Saudi Arabia, UAE, among others that are like greatly controlled by Israel. I don't know what the percentage is, right? And it's not complete, it's not 100%, but it's nearly complete. The UAE has handed over their cybersecurity to Israel, so they're pretty much owned by Israel.
Good job.
Right? So now, why did they put out this statement anyway if some of these countries are totally in Israel's pocket? Because the number one thing that they're all worried about, the dictators in the Gulf, is their local population rising up. And the more Israel has this, like basically the metaphor here is Israel's like this 280-pound guy sitting on a 12-year-old boy and just pounding him in the face. And everybody's watching like, oh, right? And so their local population keeps saying, go help them, go help them. But the dictators don't want to help the Palestinians. They're getting money from the Israelis, they're making trade deals, they're doing this and that. And besides which, they're dictators, right? So the reason that those guys are now upset, the dictators are, is because now their populations are going to become uncontrollable. So now that Israel is going to push America into another war in the Middle East, now they're pulverizing the Palestinians, the Syrians, the Lebanese, and now the Persians, and they're all Muslims. At some point, the local Muslim population in these countries are going to explode. They're going to say, no, this humiliation, we can't bear it anymore.
Well, they're coming for your land.
Yeah,
and they're coming for your land. So whatever leadership you have right now, that's basically sitting by, they're sitting on their asses watching Israel just annihilate the Palestinian people. And maybe you were under the impression that Israel would stop there. No, they're not stopping there. They're coming for you.
Yeah, and guys, it's not an exaggeration. Israel's power is unreal. So Imran Khan arrested in Pakistan because of Israel. So they captured the Pakistani government. They're working with the Indian government. It is amazing the power they have throughout the world, and give them credit. The Mossad is brilliant. Strategically, they've been amazing, right? So, but at some point, you're gonna fly too close to the sun. You've pushed everyone into, and you just basically you're telling the entire Muslim population, I am superior to you. And I will take whatever land I need, I will kill whatever family members I need to, and there's nothing you could do about it. And I'm gonna humiliate you for the rest of your lives. So these dictators are playing with fire as they try to suppress their local population. And Anna's right. The second part of it is, they're now beginning to go, oh, I thought they were just gonna do it to the Palestinians.
That's it. That's all they were gonna do. You know, we'll make a deal with the devil. We'll do trade deals. Why not? Until they come for you, they will come for you. You know that Israel used to have diplomatic and trade relations with Iran.
Yeah,
they're gonna come for you.
Of course they are. And so now, for example, countries like Turkey go, wait, you're telling me that after Iran, we're next? Are you out of your mind? So they keep pushing and pushing. I mean, they'll push all the way to Greenland if you let them. It's insanity, right? So now, though, again, these countries are beginning to realize, oh wait, I thought that they were were greedy and they were businessmen and we could make a deal, but that was because Israel was always kind of seemed like they were going for greater Israel, but mainly had secular governments. But now the messianic folks have taken over Israel, right? So they religiously want greater Israel, and they are never ever going to stop. And now their cabinet members are saying it, their government is saying it, Netanyahu has said it, they're going for greater Israel. So now it's beginning to dawn on the Saudis and the Jordanians and the Egyptians, oh, they weren't exaggerating, they really are gonna come for us. Yeah, knuckleheads, that's why if we go into Iran, this war might be so much larger than people realize. Ironically, you might bring the Sunnis, the Saudis, the Jordanians, etc., to join forces with the Shia. Normally it'd be against them. That's Iran, some portions of Yemen, etc. But now that they see Israel doesn't care about Sunni or Shia, they're coming for you all. That might unite them. And then we're in the middle of the biggest war you've ever seen. Besides which, the Russians are saying they're going to help the Iranians if we go to war, and the Chinese are selling them weapons as we speak. So Israel is making us walk the plank against almost the entire world.
That's right.
And then when we turn to our government to go, wait a minute, hey, stand up for us. Our ambassador is the one saying Israel deserves all of the Middle East, and he's lighting our relationships in the Middle East on fire on behalf of who he really works for, which is Israel.
Yeah, in fact, Bezalel Smotrich, who's a terrorist, wrote this following Huckabee's statements. I love Huckabee. Gee, I wonder why. But just quickly going back to the statement that was put out by all of those countries and governing bodies, I want to give you a few excerpts of what they had to say. I mean, very strongly worded here. They called Huckabee's remarks dangerous and inflammatory and said they constitute a flagrant violation of the principles of international law. Let's all laugh at the notion that international law even means anything at this point, but I digress. Let's keep going. And the Charter of the United Nations, which Israel does not respect and would like to dismantle, and pose a grave threat to the security and stability of the region. On top of that joint statement, Saudi Arabia's foreign ministry described Huckabee's comments as extremist rhetoric and unacceptable, and called for the State Department to clarify its position on them. Well, Saudi Arabia has been enabling Israel even before the general public knew about it. They were doing so behind the scenes. Now it's out in the open. So Saudi Arabia enabling Israel comes with consequences. So congratulations, Saudi Arabia, you guys are doing great. And Egypt's foreign ministry called his comments a blatant violation of international law, adding that Israel has no sovereignty over the occupied Palestinian territory or other Arab lands. I would appreciate if Egypt stopped taking our money in order to essentially take the bribe to play nice with Israel and maybe defend your country. And the League of Arab States also said statements of this nature, extremist and lacking any sound basis, serve only to inflame sentiments and stir religious and national emotions. So that's what they had to say about it. Again, I fail to see how they're shocked or surprised by what Israel's real intentions are here. And now the US is trying to do a tiny bit of damage control. A spokesperson for the US Embassy said on Sunday that Huckabee's comments were taken out of context. I don't think that's really damage control. That's just insulting our intelligence. I watched the full conversation with Huckabee. It was not taken out of context. Huckabee has very little interest in what's best for the United States, has like a cult-like belief in his religion and is willing to do anything and everything for Israel, even if it means harming the United States in the meantime. And Huckabee himself wrote on X after that clip went viral, Tucker and I had a very twisty and frankly confusing discussion about the meaning of Zionism. He started out the discussion on Zionism by saying he wanted to ask me in my capacity as a former Baptist minister about the theology of Christian Zionism, which is a disgrace, by the way. But he kept dragging it to discussions about other topics, literally other countries, things that have nothing to do with ideology. You are the US ambassador to Israel. First of all, I don't care about your religion. I don't care about your religion at all. Your religion should not have any governing power at all, period. But on top of that, yeah, your opinions on what should happen in the Middle East as US ambassador to Israel are incredibly important here. So playing dumb about this, I thought we were gonna have a theological debate. No one gives a damn about your theological debate. It matters that your theology essentially sucks the life out of our country to build the empire of a foreign country. But other than that, why the hell is Christian Zionism the law of the land in the United States?
Yeah, so here are my last set of comments. So earlier in the show, we talked about who's a bigger threat to the Middle East, Iran or Israel. That's not close. Obviously, Israel, they've attacked 7 of their neighbors. Iran has attacked none of their neighbors. Now you can say, hey, well, through Hamas and Hezbollah, maybe you could say that they attacked Israel in some way. Okay, 1-7, still not close. And who's occupying more land? Not close. Iran's not occupying any land outside of their own. Israel's occupying land in 3-4 different countries. Then who's a bigger terrorist? Again, not close. If you say, well, Hamas funded by Iran partially, so October 7th counts, no problem. All of the terrorism of Hamas counts, okay, no problem. Israel has still killed 70 times the number of civilians at a bare minimum as Hamas, and has a worse civilian kill ratio. So that means empirically, they are the bigger terrorists. The people that are telling you that the Iranians are the bigger terrorists are lying to you on purpose to get you to go and say yes to this war. If you knew that Israel was 70 times the terrorist that Iran is, you might think, wait, are we invading the wrong country? Now, finally, who is a bigger danger to international law and the world working together? That's not remotely close. Obviously, Israel. They're saying that we shouldn't follow international law. They absolutely refuse to follow international law. They haven't signed on to any of the international law agreements Iran has. Iran actually says we will keep our nuclear program within the bounds of international law. Israel secretly built a nuke outside of international law by stealing our nuclear secrets. So, and then the United Nations, Iran doesn't attack the United Nations. Israel constantly attacks the United Nations. The world shouldn't work together. You should all be divided. And you should only listen to us and no one else, okay? So now, guys, at this point, the American people are starting to wake up and go, wait, not only do I not think Iran is some sort of mortal enemy as I've been sold by American media and politicians, I'm beginning to think that Israel might not even be an ally, the amount of trouble that they're getting us into. And now I see both Biden and Trump seeming to work for a different country. Now I see our ambassador humiliating us, working for a different country. I see 94% of our Congress takes money from the Israeli lobby, and I see Fetterman and Graham, Democrat and Republican, clearly working for a different country. Wait a minute, are we even sure that Israel's not an enemy?
I know where I stand on that issue.
Are we sure about that? Because now the media, if you tell them that, they'll be outraged and they'll go to racial attacks.
Okay, go ahead. I don't care.
And so,
Israel is an enemy to the United States.
But they won't have they won't have any substance behind it. They just use catchphrases like special ally, Judeo-Christian heritage, the only democracy in the Middle East.
Show me how. How is Israel a special ally? What has Israel ever done for the United States? And if you come at me and say, oh, well, they share really important intelligence with the US, it's always inaccurate intelligence meant to goad the United States into fighting its wars for them. Israel is not an ally. Israel has only harmed the United States, driven us into massive amounts of debt, and I want nothing to do with them.
And I'll end on this. So they've taken at least $330 billion from us. None of these other, Iran hasn't taken a dime from us, let alone $330 billion. We're told by our media and our politicians we owe that to Israel. We don't have a choice. We'll all be called anti-Semites unless you hand over your wallet, right? And then on top of that, we did $8 trillion for the global war on terror, which was just the global war on Israel's enemies. You can check the list. They're all Israel's enemies. They all had nothing to do with us. Iraq not only didn't attack us on 9/11, they attacked Al-Qaeda, our enemy, right? We were lied to en masse to support Israel as if they're our ally, when it appears they've been taking advantage of us the entire time. And when the American people find out, like the Arab populations, the Muslim populations across the world we were talking about earlier in the story, now we're going to get restless and we're going to wonder if our leaders are actually representing us and we live in a democracy, or if they're representing a different country and we've been compromised.
Well, get on my level, because it's the latter, and it's about time that the American people realize that and take our country back, because we don't live in a sovereign country. We live in a country that is currently being controlled by a malicious, genocidal foreign regime, and that regime is Israel. We'll be right back. We've got to take a break.
All right, let's start with YouTube members. Snow Wolf Vol says Mondays suck, but TYT makes it better. All right, I love that. Boxy Brown says, you two are looking sharp. Okay, well, thank you, appreciate it. That's baked in for Anna, so I'll take it as my compliment. Independent Conversation says, I wanted to share this for Operation Joy. So we'll do it a day early. It's okay, we'll do Operation Joy tomorrow too. The woman I considered to be the one who got away, I finally got a second chance with.
Oh, hell yeah.
Almost 20 years since high school, and I got my joy. Damn, get it. Okay, that's a beautiful story. I love that story. Arcane Eclectic says, Iran sees how Trump doesn't threaten North Korea anymore, and they want to be in that same position. Guys, that's a great example, an analogy, right? So you know how I talk about the illusion that mainstream media creates? So they say, it's because we're so concerned about nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction. So when Trump got into office, North Korea had 0 nukes. They built 6 in his first term. You know what they're up to now? 60. And we didn't do anything about the North Koreans. We drew no red lines. In fact, Trump started talking about love letters he got from Kim Jong-il, right? Or Kim Jong-un. Why did we pay no attention while North Korea actually built weapons of mass destruction? Because they're not next to Israel. So we paid them no mind at all because Israel didn't need them toppled. So there was 0 conversations about North Korea as they built 60 nukes. Iran doesn't have anything near a nuke, and we're like, we have to obliterate it. Because of weapons of mass destruction, and you call yourself a reporter? Didn't you ever ask yourself, well, why didn't we obliterate North Korea? Okay, no, it's literally, it's stunning to me too, guys. I'm just as surprised as you guys are, but it is stunning the amount of control that Israel has in this country. It's not a little, it's near 100%. Free Meatballs and Linguini said the Trump deserves the Peace Prize because he's a piece of. Okay, got that. All right, let's go to Super Chat. 75 writes in, I'm ready for Cenk to go more full Tony Soprano, and then has a bunch of fire emojis. Love the show. That's actually Anna today. The Only Me I-43 says, Cenk, great to see you on Piers. Low key, I believe that's also on fire. Timmy D says, although I don't often get low key on Piers, but thank you. Timmy D says, the fact that Witkoff wants them to capitulate is more proof that Trump regime wants Iranians to be slaves. Yet no amount of giving in will satisfy Israel and hence Trump. They have to have you groveling on the ground, completely defenseless, and saying we submit to mighty Israel. Otherwise, I'm gonna keep killing you and killing you and killing you and taking your land. Josh D 8787 says, all in caps, I love you guys for calling out both parties in Congress. And they need to grow a pair and call out Trump for being pro-Israel and for his poor release of the Epstein files protecting pedophiles. Speaking of which, the Democrats, do you see them animated going, no, don't go to war. War's a terrible idea. No. The only ones I see on TV are kind of saying halfway, yes, we should go to war.
To be fair, AOC did issue a tweet today.
Well, a tweet has been issued.
No war with Iran.
Okay, I didn't know that tweet was issued. Wow, that's a big difference. Make It Make Sense says, in case you can't fathom 20 trillion in debt, that is $355,000 owed per taxpayer and growing. One day we might reduce the debt and inflation. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Melody Loves Music, thank you for gifting a membership on YouTube in America's 1776 USA. And The Raging Atheist, 2 handles I like a lot. Thank you for joining, guys. Great to have you as part of the Young Turks. Anna.
We've got some more international news, although this strikes a little closer to home.
Security forces now patrolling the country from the air and on the streets. Plumes of billowing black smoke as gunshots ring out in the distance. The violence reaching into popular tourist hotspots like Puerto Vallarta. Flames surrounding this Costco, vehicles charred in the parking lot. In Guadalajara, bullets piercing through car doors and shattering storefront windows. The U.S. Embassy urging Americans across the country, even as far east as Cancun, to shelter in place and avoid roads.
If you've been around long enough, you know about former President Felipe Calderon's efforts at fighting drug cartels in Mexico and what that led to. It led to extreme violence in Mexico, and unfortunately that is what we are seeing today following the capture and killing of a drug kingpin. Before I give you the details on that, Cenk, do you remember under Calderon what happened?
Yeah,
it was
disaster.
Bad.
Yeah. So in fact, that's the two things I want to talk about after Anna gives you the facts. One is what are going to be the consequences of this? How badly will it devolve? Will it affect us? And number two, why was Sheinbaum pushed into doing this now as opposed to another time, especially with the Olympics about to go to Mexico in about 4 months? So we'll talk about all that. Anna, give them the facts.
So let me just start off by saying cartels are a huge problem in Mexico, and it doesn't just impact Mexico. Obviously, the drug trafficking carried out by these cartels impacts the United States, where there is this unending appetite for various drugs that are killing our people. So I absolutely understand wanting to do something about the cartels. But unfortunately, there are no great options because the second you take out a cartel leader, you get this massive amount of violence because the cartels are well organized and they have tactics to essentially hinder any of the actions taken by local law enforcement or the military in Mexico. So let me fill in the blanks here because early on Sunday, a team of elite Mexican Army and National Guard special operations soldiers descended on the community of Tapalpa in western Mexico, where El Mencho, as he's called, he's the head of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, remained holed up after his girlfriend left. So basically, the US was part of this operation. We didn't have boots on the ground, but the US had gathered intelligence that it shared with Mexican authorities so they could essentially trail El Mencho, okay, this cartel leader. And when they found him, he basically was in like a more remote part of Mexico. They followed his girlfriend who went to go visit him there. And then at that point, the operation was carried out, okay? So El Mencho was a significant player, a top dog, if you will, when it came to drug trafficking. The United States, which had a $15 million bounty on him, had shared intelligence with Mexico in order to make this happen. Mexico was facing a lot of pressure from the Trump administration to do something about the cartel violence. And US officials said that the newly created US Joint Interagency Task Force Counter Cartel helped with this mission. But again, no boots on the ground. That's what the president of Mexico, Sheinbaum, wanted to avoid. Now, the task force was specifically created to dismantle drug cartel networks. The president of Mexico made it clear that not only are there no boots on the ground, Mexico does not want the United States to send soldiers. And she also says that all operations from their planning onwards are the responsibility of the Mexican federal forces. Now, authorities, again, were tracking his girlfriends in order to find him, and they chased him and his bodyguards into the woods after they had located him. A battle had ensued, and from what we're learning from these reports, the bodyguards had 2 rocket launchers and they fired them onto the Mexican troops. In the end, 8 people were killed in the fighting, including El Mencho and 2 of his bodyguards. But dozens of people have been killed since that whole operation took place. More and more people have been killed. The cartel responded violently in 20 out of 32 Mexican states. More than 50 people died in the aftermath of the raid during the gang's counteroffensive. The dead included 25 Mexican soldiers and security officers and 30 alleged gunmen. There were also civilians caught in the crossfire, including a pregnant woman. A top financial operator for El Mencho, his last name is Oseguera, was also killed in a gunfight at a nearby town as he attempted to flee in a car Sunday. The cartel operative was offering rewards of 20,000 pesos, around $1,200, for the death of any Mexican soldier involved in the operation. Now, a common tactic that the cartel members use in order to kind of stop or hinder any type of operation being carried out by the military or law enforcement is they'll like set cars, trucks, various things on fire in the middle of the roads to essentially make it difficult for movement for the military. And so you will see a lot of videos of various fires on roads all across Mexico. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about the fact that, under the former Mexican president, Obrador, he at one point had captured El Chapo's son, but then let him go because violence similar to what we're seeing in Mexico right now had broken out. And in previous efforts to dismantle these cartels, under Calderon, for instance, the violence was so bad that I think it's kind of informed politicians in Mexico to not try to fight the cartels. But I don't think that's a good option either. So I don't really know what the solution is, Cenk, because the cartels are a problem and they do victimize local populations in Mexico. They extort them, they extort their businesses. It's an absolute disaster.
So I'm gonna give you all my analysis, then I'm gonna say something startling, okay? So that'll be fun, okay? So first of all, you're right overall. We're damned if we do, damned if we don't. The cartels are out of control, you gotta do something about it. But the minute you start to do something about it, you get even more violence. First, let's be fair. Hey, look, the CIA did something, and kind of in America's interest. That hasn't happened in like maybe ever. So I'm kind of shocked that the CIA was competent enough, awake enough, and they did something not related to Israel. All of that is shocking. So I am giving credit where credit is due there. Secondly, El Mencho was a lot more relevant to dealing drugs in this country, and specifically fentanyl, than Venezuela in its entirety. So at least there's more logic in going after this cartel as opposed to the government of Venezuela, which is more about oil and shockingly, weirdly, somewhat about Israel than it is about this. But this has nothing to do with any of that other parts of the world. This is just about the cartels. And so I get it. It's more pertinent to us. And there's some upsides to taking this guy out for sure. So then why is this even a question? Because there's 3 different sets of violence that happens once you take out one of these cartel leaders, okay? Number 1, they retaliate because they don't want there to be a perception that they've lost their hold on power. A lot of the ways that they do extortion is everyone gives them money because they think they're in charge and the government cannot protect me. If the people start to believe the government can protect them, then the cartels will lose a tremendous amount of power. So they want to strike back so forcefully that it provides a disincentive for the government to act so they can hold on to their power. Number 2, leaders within the cartel, after the leaders toppled, then fight amongst themselves.
Exactly, yeah.
And that creates an enormous amount of violence. Number 3, the other cartels, sensing that they could grab territory, attack the weakened cartel. And then that leads to even more violence. So you've got this triple damages here when you attack a leader of a cartel. So the violence is almost unavoidable. But if you use that logic forever, then you'll never do anything about the cartels. So here comes a startling statement. I don't know what to do here.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. The reason why the cartels are as powerful as they are is because there is demand for what they want to supply, which is the drugs. Unless you deal with why there is a hunger in the United States for these drugs, we're gonna continue having this problem. Because make no mistake about it, Mexico has taken out, and the US has taken out other cartel leaders in the past, and cartels continue to be a huge problem. The idea that you just take out a leader and then problem solved is like one of the most ridiculous claims in the world. So just real quick, I wanna give you the details about what I mentioned in regard to Manuel Lopez Obrador, what happened under his watch. That was the previous Mexican president. Because I mentioned that they had captured El Chapo's son and then he decided to let the son go. Security forces briefly captured Ovidio Guzman only to let him go hours later as the security forces were overwhelmed by cartel forces. Quote, so as not to put the population at risk, I ordered that this operation be stopped and that this alleged criminal be released. That's what the president said. That was in 2020. Now, going back to the other leaders, as I mentioned earlier, former Mexican President Felipe Calderón in 2006, as soon as he was, in office, decided to launch a war against the cartels. And you want to know something? He was actually successful in taking out several of the cartel leaders. Within 2 months, around 20,000 troops were involved in operations across the country, which initially attracted widespread support from communities tired of gun battles and cartel violence. But between 2006 and 2016, 20,000 people were killed in Mexico, murdered as a result of this cartel violence tied to the drug war. And you had, another instance in 2014 where 43 trainee teachers disappeared and are presumed to be killed after they were attacked by corrupt police officers and handed over to drug cartel members. So the problem within Mexico is the corruption when it comes to the law enforcement and when it comes to the military. Mexico does need to get a handle on that. And here in the United States, what we need to get a handle on is the misery that Americans find themselves in because we don't have a government that represents us. And that's not a knock on Republicans only, that is a knock on all politicians that have abandoned the American people, used the office of, either their congressional offices or the office of the presidency for their own enrichment, not because they want to be public servants. Americans are struggling. People don't turn to fentanyl because they're like, ooh, I'm bored. I'm gonna take a drug that's killing a ton of people in my country. They do it because they are absolutely miserable. Because in this country right now, I don't know what there is to look forward to. There's no hope. People don't feel like they have anything to look forward to. You need to deal with that. Killing cartel leaders might feel good, it might feel justified, but at the end of the day, it doesn't actually solve the underlying issue here.
Yeah, no, look, I'm not gonna trust any politician just in a blanket way, but Claudia Sheinbaum is pretty smart and to the best of our ability to tell, it is relatively honest for a world leader. We do Turk and Jerk of the Year at the end of the year every year. A couple of years ago, I gave it to Sheinbaum, and so I'm gonna trust her judgment a little bit here that this was the right move. So why did she do it now? Because Trump's been putting tremendous pressure on them to do something about the cartels. Sheinbaum was hesitant to do it because it upsets the status quo, and the Olympics and the World Cup are around the corner, mainly the World Cup in this case. And so, the World Cup's going to actually be in Mexico, and so. She was worried about 4 months from the World Cup, we're gonna start this madness, right? But she got pushed into it. But to be fair, again, you should do something about the cartels. I don't know if this was the right time. I'm gonna trust Sheinbaum's judgment a little bit on this. And so this is among the less offensive things that Trump has done because those are real issues in Mexico.
Trump was threatening boots on the ground in Mexico. Sheinbaum does not want boots on the ground in Mexico, so she did this to prevent US boots on the ground in Mexico. And let me just note that 25 of the 37 drug traffickers on Calderón's list were killed or jailed. Cartels are still a huge problem in Mexico.
An even bigger problem.
Yeah.
So it is a very intractable problem. Last thing is, there's one thing we could do. So over the last couple of years, the Mexican authorities have confiscated 23,000 weapons from the drug cartels in Mexico. 80% of them come from the United States.
Yeah.
We keep complaining about them exporting drugs here, fair, but we're exporting guns over there and it's literally killing them. But of course, we don't block it because the gun manufacturers are corporations that give money to politicians. So while you're not looking, they say, oh, Second Amendment, and yeah, that's true for us, but they're also exporting a lot of those weapons to create chaos on our southern border. We could get that under control, but we don't have the political will because of the legalized bribery in this country.
All right, when we come back from the break, we'll talk a little bit about Trump calling into C-SPAN, pretending to be someone else. We are governed by a child. We'll be right back.
Damn it, they failed us. And if you're not angry about that, Michael, and any of you out there, then you're damn wrong, because you should be angry. Young Turks.
It was genuine. He was mad. Cenk Uygur, known online as one of the Young Turks, isn't afraid to throw some punches.
3, 2, 1, fade up.
Cenk the Turk Uygur.
What kind of TV station is this? The whole point is for me to yell and scream and tell you what I think.
It was right out of like Wayne's World.
This guy on this little rinky-dink website is speaking truth to power. We've been averaging 600,000 views a day, beating most of the cable shows in America.
We're the largest online news show in the world. We're celebrating our 1 billionth view.
Television, we're coming.
More politics ahead with Cenk Uygur.
He knew that the MSNBC opportunity was an experiment.
If Phil and host beat CNN and headline news combined, at some point, they want to give me a show.
Every single year, that comes out of our paycheck. We put it in, and you're saying we were suckers.
When you, as a host, tells someone you're interviewing to shut up, that's going to raise a red flag.
That guy needed a tall glass of shut up juice.
If President Obama's doing the wrong thing, I'm not going to tell you that he's doing the right thing so I can, quote, support him.
He says to me, "You won't believe the meeting that I just had."
The head of MSNBC talked to me.
And they want him off the air. Cenk took an incredible risk.
We're supposed to challenge the government. That's the role of the media. The Democrats and the Republicans are here to screw you. And who on the air is saying it?
I wouldn't have done what he did.
That if I'm going to be a talk show host, I should be the biggest talk show host in the country. I don't think anyone else does it better. I don't think anyone's even close.
Before you know it, I'll be back on your TV doing a national show. I guarantee it.
Magic. It's showtime. And say 45 minutes. I'm hosting today. Now I know what you're thinking, JR, your face is already perfect, but you know what? I still need to apply some makeup. I went through this process, right? A few years ago, when I realized that I was gonna have to wear makeup on the show. I had to go through like finding out what my undertones were. You guys know what those are? I got my MAC Cosmetics. It says SPF 15 foundation, broad spectrum. But apparently what I have is red undertones, and I think pores are not supposed to be seen. I need all these things to be confirmed for me. These sponge things don't work for me. You gotta use your hands. At least I did. That's how the magic really happens. So we're gonna go through a tutorial how to make the magic happen from beautiful to beautifuler. Let's go. I've already been moisturized. That's the first thing. But moisturization already happened. We go raw, all hands. Pick up a couple streaks. This is the guy we're putting on makeup. Look at that, dots. There's some shiny points that generally happen. First of all, here we go. You dust here. I'm putting way too much, but you dust. Oh, get the excess off. You don't want chunky powder. There's like a T-zone, I think, right? Mine is a double T-zone. Because I went middle and another cross. Make sure your nose isn't all shiny. People get on you for it. You know, say, that's not a good point you made on there, JR. Your nose is shiny. You guys are picky like that sometimes. I think that's about it, fellas and ladies. See you guys next time. Bitsies.
Randy Arguay.
Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. Also, Thomas Merlot, thanks for joining. We appreciate you.
I could go for some of that right now.
So guys, we would love it if you joined as well. TYT.com/join. It makes a big, big difference to us. We appreciate everybody who does it. And we always say we're not the Young Turks, you're the Young Turks, right? And so we're empowered by you guys and we appreciate you. Also, if everybody's finances are, of course, tight, etc., you could ring the bell, and that also helps a lot. That's also on YouTube. You can share the videos, like the videos, all of that helps, and we appreciate all of you doing that. Now I get to do my favorite thing, which is read some of your comments. Alexander Ing, who is a member on YouTube, says, I want to know when Israel is going to pay back all the money it received from the United States. That's what I want to know. And then I want to know why they have free healthcare and we don't. Alexander, our media will literally call you an anti-Semite for asking those questions when they're the most reasonable questions in the world. They say, oh my God, we helped you so much by taking 330 billion from you. Great, then now we can help you when you give us the 330 billion back, right? Because if giving you money is so good for us, then you giving us money is gonna be fantastic for you. The other day, Benjamin Netanyahu gave a speech bragging about how they're top 3 best growing economy in the world. Their GDP average salary's gone from 17,000 to 63,000. How they're living so large and they've got universal health care and paid family leave and free college. We don't have any of those things. But they say if we don't continue, forget getting the money back. If we don't continue to give money to them, we don't continue to do their wars, we're all bigots and racists and anti-Semites.
Okay, that's fine, I'll take it.
Yeah.
If that's a trade-off, I'll take it, okay? If you want to call me names, I'll freaking take it. Anyway, keep going.
Faye Scott Smith says, isn't it so strange that so much is going on now and we are over 40 trillion in debt? What is really the plan? Why so much? Are we in an active psyop? Faye, the whole thing's a psyop. I mean, look, the global war on Israel's enemies cost $8 trillion. That's 8 out of the 38. Just on that alone. And if you were a tiny little country like Israel and you could get the biggest military in the world, the best economy in the world, to give you $8 trillion worth of not just defense, but offense, so you could take more land and get richer, well, wouldn't you? Of course you would, right? I think, see, like people think that saying that Israel would do this stuff is like saying that Israel's uniquely evil. No, I think if they had the capacity, almost any other foreign nation would do this, right? But they don't have the capacity. Israel has the capacity, so they've done it. And they've taken all this money from us and our blood and treasure. Okay, but there's a limit and we've reached the limit and that's enough. I mean, guys.
I don't see other foreigners visiting Patagonia and lighting it on fire, Cenk.
That's a whole nother thing. So listen, guys, last thing on that. Look, we not only have to pay that 8 trillion, Israel never has to pay it, we have to pay it, but we're paying interest on that every single year and the interest is gigantic. And we're being forced to pay that interest in perpetuity, forever and ever and ever. And then on top of all that, the Israel First in this country still says, not enough. We demand more, and if you don't give more, you're all anti-Semites. And so they don't realize that they're creating a massive, massive problem for themselves. Nobody else is doing it. They're doing it with their incredible abuse of this country. Yes, I'd love to see our money back. And Joseph Stewart speaks for all of us when he says the angry 18-year-old me who protested the Iraq invasion on the streets of Sydney is starting to come back.
I feel you.
Yeah.
I feel you. That's when I became politicized. So I feel you. That rage is back. That's for sure.
Now, honestly, back then I didn't know that we were doing that for Israel.
Neither did I.
So now that we wasted $8 trillion and lost all those guys, and they asked us to do it again with a country 4 times the size of Iraq, our answer should be a unified hell no. Good news it is. That's what the polling indicates. Bad news, our government is compromised and doesn't care what we think at all. They will serve the foreign government, it looks like, until we do something about our own government. We need to get it back, and we can get it back politically. Vote out all the incumbents. So unless your incumbent is Tom Massey or Ro Khanna, or you're absolutely positive they're honest, vote them all out in the primaries. You don't have to cross party lines. That's why mainstream media never talks about primaries. Primaries are the most important thing. Vote out all the bums. If you cleared out 10% of Congress, that would be an earthquake. And we can do that together. So if you want, sign the pledge at operationconsequences.com or just do it on your own. Make sure you vote in the primaries against all the corrupt incumbents that serve Israel instead of us. We'll be right back.
Wayne Gretzky.
All right, guys, you know I told you about Shopify earlier, and we run Shop TYT through them. So check out shoptyt.com. There's some great damage report merch on there. My favorite merch is like the new TYT logo. So that's limited edition for Dragon Squad hats. Mark Thompson's got to get one of those. Shoptyt.com. But my favorite is the new logo of TYT, like the Rebel Alliance Gladiator type of logo. And number 2 is all the Operation Hope, Team Joy t-shirts on there. So make sure you check that out. All right, let's go to a super chat because there's a lot of folks who wrote in. Cornelius Poindexter said, the same Democrats saying I told you so about Trump are the same ones that called you a secret Trump supporter if you criticize Biden for being too old or for Kamala being a bad speaker. Oh my God, Cornelius, I couldn't agree with you more.
Okay, this story didn't make it in the rundown today, but I do want to mention it. So you know how the Democrats did a after election autopsy for like why they're such massive losers? Well, it turns out that their stance on Gaza, Kamala Harris's stance on Gaza, namely the fact that she kept rejecting and kicking out pro-peace protesters from her events, really hurt her. I remember writing about that during the election and getting a lot of hate from Democratic voters. So like, listen, it is not my job and it's not Cenk's job, it's not the media's job to put a nice shiny bow on your preferred candidate and like force feed people BS about how great this person is. She was a terrible candidate and we're three years out from the next election. So how about we get it right this time and we not make excuses for crappy Democratic candidates? How about we work really hard and have really high standards so we end up with a good candidate that would actually represent us?
Yeah, so there, Israel First says, oh, you guys make everything about Israel, right?
Yeah, everything is about Israel.
Well,
everything is. I mean,
so like here's a great example of it, right? We didn't make this about Israel. We had no idea that the autopsy had anything to do with Israel or Gaza. And we originally blamed the DNC for being, stuck in its ways and not wanting to offend the politicians and Biden and Kamala Harris, etc. Turns out, no, it had nothing to do with that. The autopsy showed that supporting Israel cost the Democratic Party, so it got buried. Israel First buried the report to make sure that you don't know how toxic Israel is to the Democratic Party. The people inside the Democratic Party that are Israel First are not for Democratic Party, they're for Israel. They would destroy, and they have destroyed the Democratic Party on behalf of Israel.
Yes, yeah.
So it turns out it is always Israel, more than we realized. Okay, I've got to read the last couple ones here. Tom Terrific 3 writes in, one key point in that interview is he said Israel could take the rest of it if it's in self-defense. And that's exactly right, Tom, because they paint every aggressive action they have as self-defense. None of the articles I read today mentioned, they started talking about how Israel is taking more and more land. And I was like, oh, there we go. We had a little bit of breakthrough where the Associated Press is beginning to tell the truth, right? But of course, they don't tell you Israel started almost all those wars. They started the 1967 war and they took tremendous territory. It was a war of aggression. It was an offensive war having nothing to do with self-defense. The whole self-defense claim is a 100% lie. They invented the idea of preemptive strikes so they could take land while pretending to be the victims and doing self-defense. So, and then they arrogantly always say, learn your history, because they learn propaganda. That isn't close to true. We'll be back.
I'm a very stable genius.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys, more news.
Let's get to our next story.
John in Virginia, Republican. Let's hear from you.
Well, this is John Barron, and this is the worst decision you've ever had in your life, practically.
That was the president of the United States pretending to be someone else, using a well-known pseudonym that Trump is known to have used in the past. Now, C-SPAN claims that it wasn't President Donald Trump because they think we're morons, but I don't know, Cenk, what do you think?
No, this one's actually in dispute, but I'm with you. I'm a C-SPAN truther.
How is this in dispute?
So we'll get to it. So you want to get into it now? Here, let's do it.
No, let's pause.
Okay.
Because you're wrong. But nonetheless, after 6 Supreme Court justices struck down Trump's global tariffs on Friday, he's been spiraling. I mean, if you've paid any attention to what Trump's been up to, he's been complaining. He says that these Supreme Court justices should be ashamed, that their family members are probably ashamed of them. I mean, it's just total childish brain rot, totally taking control, even though the tariffs have been disastrous for the US economy. He should use this as honestly a blessing to back away from a tariff policy that has been bad for his presidency and bad for the American people, but he's not seeing it that way. So he also took some time to rail on Democratic leadership like Hakeem Jeffries, who led the charge to get the tariffs repealed, especially the tariffs on Canada. So let's take a quick look at that.
Several of Republicans in Congress have supported this decision by the Supreme Court. And Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader, has called you a wannabe king. Why wouldn't
him a low IQ?
But why wouldn't
he doesn't even know? And I watched him the other day interview. The guy doesn't even know what a tariff is.
But there's been bipartisan criticism.
No, not bipartisan.
Of the tariffs.
Excuse me.
There's several Republicans have said that.
Yeah,
well,
a few
why
people.
wouldn't you just work with Congress to come up with a plan?
I don't have to
push tariffs.
I have
through?
the right to do tariffs, and I've always had the right to do tariffs, and it's all been approved by Congress. So there's no reason to do it.
Yeah, Supreme Court ruled against you. The Supreme Court ruled against you. The Supreme Court, by the way, 3 of the justices who you nominated. Okay, one of them didn't rule against him, right? Brett Kavanaugh's like worried about the refund scenario. Who cares about the refund? Is it constitutional or not? But anyway, whatever, I digress. Like most of them ruled against Donald Trump, but he doesn't want to accept it. So I think Trump did call into C-SPAN to complain like a whiny little child. So let's take a listen and then we'll have this debate.
Well, this is John Barron, and this is the worst decision you've ever had in your life, practically. Jack's going to agree with me, right? But this is a terrible decision. And you have Hakeem Jeffries, he's a dope, and you have Chuck Schumer, who can't cook a cheeseburger. Of course these people are happy. But true Americans will not be happy. And you have the woman earlier, I assume she's a woman, she's a Democrat, but she said she's disgraced. She's devastated.
Now, C-SPAN denies the fact that this was President Donald Trump, writing on X that because so many of you are talking about Friday's C-SPAN caller who identified himself as John Barron, we want to put this to rest. It was not the president. The call came from a Central Virginia phone number and came while the president was in a widely covered in-person White House meeting with the governors. Okay, tune into C-SPAN, blah, 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 you get the point. I don't believe them.
That's amazing that you don't believe them. Okay, so hold on. First, let's ask you guys, because we have a poll on this on tyt.com. John Barron called into C-SPAN, that is often Trump's pseudonym. What really happened? A, that was the real John Barron, he exists. B, that was Trump, our president is a child. C, it was an impersonator who nailed Trump's voice and style. Okay, so you guys tell us what you think about it. So Anna, I was positive it was Trump. And part of the reason that I was positive that it was Trump is because the way he tried to change his voice. Like, I'll tell you what, he's a dope. Okay, like, but his voice still comes through as he's trying to suppress the voice.
It sounds exactly like
him. It sounds exactly like him. But more importantly than even sounding like him, because impersonators can get really close.
Thank you. The audience gets it, Cenk.
Okay,
the audience gets it. They can't be fooled. Okay. How dare you try to trick them?
Okay, I'm not trying to trick anybody. And then, but his style is so Donald Trump, right? Like the referencing the earlier caller and everybody's a dope, etc. So, but when C-SPAN put out this, I mean, I'd love to be a C-SPAN's truther and be like, no, C-SPAN's lying on behalf of Donald Trump. But why would they lie on behalf of Donald Trump?
Because it's embarrassing to get fooled by Donald Trump.
By the way, the host should be mortified. Look, I'm not trying to blame her or whatever, but that was so obviously at least a Trump impersonator, at the very least, that she, instead of getting rid of the call, she should have been like, wait, caller, you sound like Donald Trump. So who actually are you?
Yeah.
Like that would have been an amazing moment on television where we might have been able to find out.
The only thing working against me in my theory that was in fact Donald Trump is the fact that the caller called into C-SPAN. And I just have a hard time believing that Trump has ever watched C-SPAN, even once in his life.
No, he watches TV so religiously and old school TV that I wouldn't
Fox,
overly
though.
Okay, but look, the bottom line on this is we all believe that it's possible. Even if you're MAGA, you know you believe that it was possible,
Trump.
right? And so whereas like no one would believe that Obama was gonna call into C-SPAN and go, you know, you're really being unfair to Barack Obama. And make up a pseudonym, etc. Man, that sounded like Trump. And it is very believable because he is that childish.
And by the way, it's not hard to believe that it would be Trump because this was something that he would do almost on a regular basis back in the day. So in the 1980s, when reporters called the Trump organization to request an interview with the boss, they were sometimes referred to a spokesman instead. The spokesman, John Barron, was actually Trump hiding behind a fake name. But C-SPAN did get involved and say it wasn't actually Trump. Trump was busy in a business meeting with, I don't know.
In Northern Virginia, not Central Virginia.
And by the way, this whole thing about
I'm kidding about Northern Virginia, I don't know where Trump was.
The caller used a phone number based in Virginia. Oh, okay, it's not like you can,
Yeah, that's
use a service that changes your phone number. Like, it's just so ridiculous. Come on.
Yeah, you could easily dupe your number. Anybody can do that.
Exactly.
But like with the fact that they said Virginia did make me doubt it a little bit. Like if it was like Rhode Island or Missouri, maybe, right? But they're like, it's in a different part of Virginia. Okay, but overall, look, I don't think whether it was him or not is overly relevant. But what is relevant is that we have a president so childish that we think he might do this. And then that guy's in charge of deciding whether we start a disastrous war in the Middle East, whether we go to war with Venezuela and Cuba and Iran, and these wild tariffs, 15% tariffs that he's imposing, despite the Supreme Court saying that he can't. Like his actions lead you to believe that he would make a call like that.
Yeah,
and that
absolutely.
is super dangerous to have that kind of instability in the White House.
Now, the Supreme Court's decision on Trump's tariffs does open up a huge problem, right? A complicated one, because since the Supreme Court has decided that his tariffs were unconstitutional, the importers of foreign produced goods are expecting a refund of some sort. And I want to talk a little bit about the businesses, which might get some sort of refund. I have no idea. But you know who's not gonna get any money back? American consumers. And I wanna talk a little bit about how much it cost us as American consumers to deal with Trump's tariffs, which did not lead to an uptick in manufacturing jobs in our country, which did not benefit our economy in any way, shape, or form. Trump has used tariffs as a cudgel to get what he wants from these various countries, to get certain business deals that he and his family wants. It's not about the American people. That's what's been clear to me. And I say this as someone who was actually very supportive of the notion that we should use tariffs in order to convince businesses to bring jobs back here to the United States where products could be produced and you don't have to worry about paying, exorbitant tariffs. But nonetheless, the way he did it was ham-handed. It wasn't really about bringing jobs back to the United States. Now, this all cost us money, meaning us individuals as consumers. And a report released this month by Democrats on the Joint Economic Committee in Congress found American families paid an average of $1,745 in tariff costs between February of 2025 and January of 2026, less than a year. That's how much the average US consumer spent on tariffs. Because guess what? Tariffs are taxes that are typically absorbed by the importers, meaning the businesses importing products from other countries, and they tend to pass off some of those costs, at least, to the consumers. So congratulations, America.
Yeah, so they asked Donald Trump, okay, well, the Supreme Court says you kind of have to pay these tariffs back. They remanded to lower courts to figure out how you're gonna pay them back. I'm super worried that it's gonna go to corporations, and I will fight that with every fiber of my being, and then we'll probably lose, but we'll keep fighting. But Trump said that he would give $2,000 to every American based on how much money we were making from the tariffs. So a reporter asked them, they said, okay, then are you gonna, this kind of gets to about, not really quite 2,000, but almost for every American. So is that the plan? And he's like, when did I say that? I don't remember saying that. Oh my God, dude, it was a major proposal that you unveiled. I mean, if Biden said that, we'd all be talking about his mental decline and dementia, right? When he's like, oh yeah, 1776, that's what we're gonna give to the soldiers. No, that's a different promise you made called the warrior dividend. You're totally losing track of all the nonsense. And then I read a story that outlined all the different things that he promised to give away to the average American, including $5,000 per American for all the savings that Doge was gonna give us. Okay, so it's so ironic because you remember what Republicans said throughout our whole lives. Oh, the Democrats, they're just trying to get votes by giving away money, free money to everyone. That's exactly what Donald Trump is promising, but never delivering.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Doge didn't really save much money, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's take a break. When we come back, another person in the UK has been arrested due to the release of the Epstein files. Here in the United States, of course, no consequences for anyone really, because we don't live in a country that's governed by a government that actually cares about the people. So when we come back, we'll tell you about what's happening in the UK and more. Don't miss it.
All right, we go to Savage Lou on Twitch saying Huckabee's Greater Israel backing has basically rallied the entire Middle East to back Iran against Israel and the US to protect their own sovereignty. Yeah, of course, Israel has almost united the entire planet against us, our so-called ally. Microgram says, so Iran is a week away from a nuclear bomb, but their nuclear program was completely destroyed in Trump's big, beautiful bombing. Make it make sense. Of course it doesn't make sense. It's Israel driving it and our press is not allowed to ask questions. They must submit to the will of Israel. Danger Mouse 17 says, 56 months rocking with Cenk, Anna, Johnny Pie, JR Jordan and my TYT family. I love you all and appreciate that we can all keep each other sane while our country burns. Here on that. And now we go to Super Chat. Night of Mirage Odyssey. Writes in, I'm gonna read this blind. Ramadan Mubarak, Mubarak back to you. It's not fascinating coming from colonizer Mike Huckabee's staggering hypocrisy on Tucker Carlson. He claims to care about Christians, yet gleefully advocates for mass slaughter and illegal settlements. To cheerlead the remake of the Holocaust of Gaza and the West Bank, the very land where Jesus was born and preached, is sickening. Politicians pushing this brainwashed Zionism belong at The Hague. That part I agree with. They desecrate the holy text they claim to revere. Jesus, who walked that land, commanded peace. All who draw the sword will die by the sword. Matthew 26:52. The Holy Quran also utterly condemns the slaughter of innocents we've witnessed. Quote, whoever takes a life, it will be as if they killed all of humanity. Using the birthplace of Christ and biblical claims to justify the mass extermination, expansion, and displacement of native Palestinians is ultimate blasphemy. I think it's time now for ICC to revise its list. I will say this, the people who constantly are talking about, oh, the Palestinians aren't real people, meaning like as a state, as a government, Palestine never existed. Palestinian is a made up word. The Palestinians are irrelevant. The Palestinians should never get a state. The Palestinians are terrorists, etc. Those are fascists who would have said the same exact thing about Jews. Oh, the Jews have no rights, they shouldn't exist, they're not really people, they're cockroaches, they're this, they're that, etc. So they have become what they most feared and despised. There's no question about it. They are absolutely brutal to the Palestinians. They have enslaved them for 58 years. And they say they are never going to give them their freedom. I don't know anything more disgusting and fascist than a government saying we're occupying 5.5 million other people and we will never give them their freedom. Well, that's a country that is not an ally of a democracy, obviously an enemy. Cole39 says, Irish living in Qatar love that the US base has been evacuated and we're left here to deal with the US action's consequences. Hope Trump comes to his senses. He's being sarcastic about loving that. It's a disaster. He will very unlikely to come to his senses. He'll come into money and destroy us so he can make more from his Israeli benefactors. Just South of History says, as a recently awakened and red-pilled Republican, I'm struggling to be optimistic. Is there any hope? Can we ever get out from underneath Israel's control? Yeah, you can start voting out everyone who takes a single dollar from Israel or who gives a single dollar to Israel. Be ruthless about it, because it's just politics. It's not physical, it's not violent. Vote out all of them who give a single dollar more to Israel, not another.com. All right, back on TYT, Jen and Anna with you guys. Alexander NG gifted a membership. Thank you, brother. And Lady AF gifted 10. We appreciate you so much. And she also wrote in, Anna was brave enough to raise the alarm from the lighthouse before the sailors were willing to listen. I think that's a great description. Thank you so much, Lady AF. We appreciate you.
Wow, thank you. That you might be the first person that's actually recognized that, but thank you, I really appreciate it.
I don't think she's the first, but I appreciate it.
Well, you might be the first.
No. I mean, a lot of people in the audience. I've read comments like that before. You guys are amazing.
Well, you gotta like send them over.
Okay. Yes.
Anyway, let's get to our next story. Today, Peter Mandelson, the former UK ambassador to the United States, was arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. And thanks to the Epstein files, we have a pretty good idea of what exactly Mandelson did to earn that honor. Cenk, your 2 cents?
So as I see foreign countries holding their leaders and the people in power accountable, I keep wondering, is there a single person we're ever going to prosecute here? So after we talk about how Britain is actually going after the guilty, I want to talk about why we're choosing not to go after any of the guilty in this country.
Well, Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace was on Piers Morgan's show today, and she just said it flatly, like honestly. No, I don't think there's going to be a single prosecution from the revelations that we're learning from the Epstein files. And that's not because she likes this reality, she's calling it out. So I do want to give her credit for that. Now, moving on, let's go back to the UK where Mandelson was in fact arrested. Now, we don't know what the exact charges are here, but we do know that he was arrested, and it's likely due to the fact that in his capacity as a public figure in the UK, he had access to certain information that he was passing off to Jeffrey Epstein, which allowed for him to engage in insider trading. So Mandelson, who was the UK's business secretary in 2009 during the global financial crisis, repeatedly sent Epstein confidential information regarding British policy. Now, the information did enable Epstein to engage in insider trading, and my suspicion is that's what ended up getting Mandelson arrested. Now, Mandelson, for instance, had obtained an email that was written by an aide and sent to the UK Prime Minister at the time. The email said this. The email advised the government to draw down debt by selling some 20 billion pounds in assets, equivalent to about $27 billion if converted today. Now, Mandelson decided to forward that email to Jeffrey Epstein. And Epstein did respond to it. He replied, "What saleable assets?" To which Mandelson said, "Land, property, I guess." A similar exchange took place a year later in 2010. Mandelson appeared to confirm to Epstein during the height of the Eurozone crisis that a $500 billion pound bailout package was about to be unveiled. "Should be announced tonight," he wrote in response to Epstein's email, saying the bailout package was almost complete. Now, the bailout was in fact announced the following day. Now, it's worth noting that in 2003 and 2004, when Mandelson was a lawmaker with the Labor Party, Epstein wired him some money, about $75,000. The reason for that transaction is unknown. In fact, when it comes to Epstein, there were lots of massive transactions involving other big name people, like Leslie Wexner is a good example. Leslie Wexner gave him power of attorney. Like, he handed everything over to Epstein. Why? Why did he do that? We still don't know. Now, Mandelson was arrested under the same offense as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew, of course, another associate of Epstein. So it doesn't have to do with, sexual misconduct per se, but certainly alleged financial crimes, insider trading, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, guys, part of the process here, and there's a lot that's missing in terms of the parts of the puzzle, but there's parts that we know, is Epstein would ask for favors back after he did something for these folks, right? Either gave them a favor, like the girls, etc., or after they had the girls, used blackmail on them. But it's clear throughout all of the Epstein files that every once in a while he would ask for something in return, right? And in this case, it was private information, secret information from the government that could, of course, make him and his allies much richer if they know it before others do. So now why did Les Wexner give over his entire fortune? We thought it was blackmail, but it turns out it's not blackmail, and the FBI thought he was his co-conspirator. Now, why are they running that whole operation? Maybe it's just to enrich themselves, but there are video cameras all across all the apartments. And honeypot operations are intelligence 101. It's what almost every intelligence unit does in every country: the CIA, Mossad, MI6, you name it. Almost all of them do honeypot operations. This is a classic honeypot operation. So they wind up having control over a lot of the
powerful people
that are in our governments, whether it's the UK government in that case or the US government. And what's happening is the Norwegians are charging their former prime minister with corruption.
Good.
In the UK, Prince Andrew has been arrested, former Prince Andrew. You saw Mandelson arrested today. And even one of the sultans in the UAE has lost his job as running the ports. You might think that's a small thing, but for a sultan, that is a grave, offense. But anyways, all these different countries are beginning to take action against the guilty. There's only one country that says there are no other clients. We will never prosecute anyone else. We can't find the videos. Originally they said there were no files at all. Now come to find out there's a massive amount of files. And that country is us. So now we have to question not only why did we cover it up for 2 decades, because there's no question that our government had these files, knew all about it, covered it up the entire time, full well knowing that they would rape new girls every single year. And now after we find out, in the beginning they say, there's no such thing. And now we find out not only was there, but there's been some horrific things that already came out of the Epstein files. And still after we find out those horrific crimes, our government says, no, we'll never prosecute anyone. Well, that means that the UK government is partially free. The Norwegian government is partially free at a minimum, but we are not at all free.
Dude, the king's brother got arrested. The king's brother.
Yeah.
Which is great. That's what you should do in a fair and just society. I'm not saying the UK is perfect, but the fact that the king's brother got arrested is a pretty big deal, especially when you juxtapose what's happening in the UK with what's not happening at all here in the United States. And I want to be clear, like Mandelson and Epstein were real close, at least based on what you see in the exchanges they have in the Epstein files. I didn't know this, I learned it today, but Mandelson is gay, and I don't see a lot here in regard to, unsavory comments about women and all that stuff. But I do see this. So in one email exchange after Jeffrey Epstein was released in 2009 from his prison sentence, and I say that because he was allowed to literally leave prison all day long to work and then come back at night. But after he was done with his sentence, he has this email exchange with Mandelson. So Mandelson writes on July 22nd, 2009, how is freedom feeling? And Epstein responds the way you would expect him to respond, in a disgusting way. She feels fresh, firm, and creamy.
And they continued to have a relationship, full well knowing. Almost all the emails joke around about how Epstein likes young girls. They're not unaware of it. There is a second hypothesis, which is that no, they didn't need to be blackmailed, and Wexner doesn't appear to have ever been blackmailed. They did it for the motherland, Israel. And so when Israel asked Wexner to give over $1 billion to Jeffrey Epstein to manage, he said yes. that when they ask for information to help Israel, they say yes. Now, why does that theory exist? Because the drop site news emails, which are different than the Epstein file emails, Epstein is trying to help Israel in almost every correspondence when it comes to a foreign country. So trying to arrange a deal between Israel and Russia, Israel and Mongolia, Israel and African countries, getting cyber weapons for Israel. And Israel has the video surveillance in his apartment. Israeli spies stay there, Israeli prime minister stays there. And that overwhelming mountain of evidence that this was to help Israel, our media ignores and goes, I can't see it. Which then goes, okay, that means the government and the media are compromised. This is absurd. That's why, and guys, how can you tell who's the conspiracy theorist and who's telling the truth? Well, there's a very easy way. We all know, and the government now, everyone acknowledges, media, government, they all acknowledge, yeah, there were 1,200 victims. And have any of the people that did that been prosecuted?
In the US, no.
In the US, other than Epstein and Maxwell, and Epstein was killed in prison. He had 3 broken parts in his neck, which does not happen in a suicide.
They never
One of the top pathologists said it was very likely murder and not suicide. And then, by the way, the Jean-Luc Brunel also killed in a prison in France after he was caught a co-conspirator. Maxwell has a very, very light sentence now, and no one else has been prosecuted. So now you know for certain that the government is not telling the truth, and then the media is covering it up, because otherwise we would have all the prosecutions you're seeing in the UK and across the world. Even that's not that many, but at least they're doing something. Whereas America is saying we definitely will protect the predators till the end of time. We knew they were raping the girls, we were okay with it, and now our job is to protect the predators and not American children. So our government is deeply compromised.
All right, let's try to do at least a little of the next story, because you mentioned Jeffrey Epstein's ties to Israel. Well, we've got more, so. There was an interesting and damning exchange between Jeffrey Epstein and someone in the state of Israel that really bolsters the argument that Jeffrey Epstein was working on behalf of Israel. Now, before I give you the details, Cenk, are you shocked?
No, not 1%. Every single email shows him trying to help Israel, the ones that relate to foreign countries. So this is the least surprising news. The only reason why you're gonna be surprised is because mainstream media never covers it, but you're gonna get the facts right here.
So when it comes to this particular exchange, it has to do with a young student who Epstein wanted to connect to Israel. So this is in 2011. Epstein reached out to someone by the name of Anat Barak. That's the daughter of former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak. He wanted to connect Anat with a Barnard College freshman by the name of Tali, who expressed interest in joining a terrorist organization known as the IDF. So here's what he wrote. She's 18 years old and has been accepted to Barnard College at Columbia University. Tali would like to serve in one of the elite units in the IDF. She would be a great asset to any unit. Upon her return to the United States for college, she would be a fantastic ambassador for Israel on one of the more important college campuses in the country, Columbia. So that very same day, Anat actually emailed Talia and CC'd Epstein in the email. This is what Anat wrote. Jeffrey Epstein told me about you and about your plans to join the IDF this summer. This is absolutely wonderful. I would love to speak with you. Can you call me when you have time? My cell is redacted. If there's anything you might need while you're in Israel, please don't hesitate to call me. So Epstein did have some close connections to Barnard College, than simply knowing Tali, a student who was going there. We can get to that later, but Cenk, your thoughts?
So Colombia seems to be deeply entrenched with Israel. So tons of the donors are part of this Epstein crew, including the top donor to Barnard, who gave $100 million. And here they are talking about how can we funnel Columbia and Barnard students into the IDF. But mainstream media still can't figure it out. Which country was Epstein linked to? I can't tell. Maybe it was Bolivia.
But not only that, so go to Israel, fight with the IDF, and when I say fight, I mean obviously slaughter innocent Palestinians. That's what the IDF does, and then come back to the United States as an ambassador for Israel.
And then remember, the founder of Free Press, Barry Weiss, started as a student at Columbia. And her main thing and how she got famous was canceling any professor that taught actual history. She demanded that Israeli propaganda be taught instead. And she rose up out of that as the leader of that cancel culture. So how many Israelis are embedded in both the administration and the student body of Columbia, trying to push Columbia into teaching Israel's version of history rather than actual history, and trying to fire anyone who defies Israel?
No, but honestly, Cenk, this sheds a lot more clarity and light on the whole freakout that took place as these pro-peace protests broke out in various Ivy League schools. Like, it led to those giant hearings, right? Where Elise Stefanik is like losing her mind and claiming that these protesters are all evil anti-Semites, when in reality, they just wanna stop seeing their resources used to slaughter, innocent people, including children. But now I kind of understand, like, it seems like some of these Ivies were kind of used as like these incubators for Israeli propaganda, and the message was kind of being taken away from the pro-Israel crowd, and they wanted to do something about it.
So we've talked before, Ghislaine Maxwell's dad is Robert Maxwell. He stole our nuclear secrets. Then he bought Macmillan Books and the other
McGraw-Hill.
McGraw-Hill. The textbooks that go into our kids' schools. Now here's Friends of Israel trying to influence the top colleges in America to teach a certain kind of history, right? So if you were going to do propaganda, you need people to think that you're the victim instead of the aggressor. So for example, you would tell them that 1967 was all about self-defense, when in reality, Israel attacked all of its neighbors, destroyed their air forces, and then grabbed the Golan Heights, West Bank, Gaza Strip, and the Sinai Peninsula. It was a super aggressive imperial war of going on the offense, but we're all taught, no, Israel was doing self-defense. It's a total lie, 100% lie. And so, but that is being spoon-fed, and now we find out, Epstein was organizing some of the people who were manipulating our top schools in the country into obedience and compliance for Israel. But yet the media can't figure out who Epstein might have worked with. Last thing is graphic 7. These are the colleges that they had infiltrated: Bard, Barnard College, Columbia University, Fashion Institute of Technology, so I don't know why that one, Harvard, and my couple of family members right there. Anyway, Harvard, Ohio State, UCLA, Yale University at a minimum, okay? And hey, where were the protests shut down? Harvard, Columbia, UCLA, all shut down any protests that criticized Israel, pretending it was about anti-Semitism. And who's on their boards? Well, as we found out through this story, Epstein's friends were on their boards.
Yes.
And that's why they demanded that any protest of Israel be shut down completely. All right, we're out of time. We got a great candidate coming up for you guys. And in the revolution, I'm gonna ask you guys to troll Mike Huckabee a little bit. So a little bit serious, a little bit fun, okay?
Done,
Okay, so Anna's gonna participate too. We'll show you how to do it when we return. All right, welcome to the Revolution, guys. So we're gonna do an interview for you guys with an interesting and good candidate in a second. First, let me shout out to Kimmy D24, John Davis, who just joined by hitting the join button. We love you guys. Fat Satter gifted 10 memberships and Box gifted 1. You guys are all amazing human beings. All right, but before we get to the interview, I just wanna say, let's do something a little bit fun here. So in the Revolution, we're trying to do a lot of different things. We wanna crowdsource the revolution. We want to get left wing, right wing together in some ways and see if we can get our government back, right? So we're doing that through some of the interviews. We're gonna have somebody on talk about corruption on Thursday, and I ask all the folks we interview, what's the thing you would do to get our government back? What's the number one thing you would do? But we also are gonna do campaigns from time to time. And those campaigns could be important and they could also be fun. So we're gonna try one here that's just a small one and see if it works, okay? See if we can have some fun with it. So what I'm gonna ask you to do is to ask Mike Huckabee legitimate questions about American policy and Israeli policy, and also to troll him. Okay, now the only thing you can't do is you can't threaten him with anything. Don't threaten anything at all, let alone anything physical or anything violent, because that means you're not one of us. If someone is doing that, they're an infiltrator and they're not part of the movement at all. We 100% reject anything that is physical or violent. If someone is threatening that, they're definitely not one of us. Okay, so now having said that, let's go have some fun. So here, I'm gonna give you, first of all, let me give you Huckabee's handle on X. It's at GovMikeHuckabee, GovMikeHuckabee. So I just wrote this tweet during the break, and so I'll give you that to you as an example. We don't have graphic on it because I just wrote it, but I'll read it to you and then I'll hit send. Then you could, comment on my tweet, but more importantly, send your own, and if you do, we'll try to find it and show some of it on the show and try to highlight it, and I might share some of your tweets as well. So here's my post. Are you going to ask Israel to extradite Tom Alexandrovich, the Israeli official who tried to rape American girls, Governor Mike Huckabee? Are you going to ask for accountability for the 10 Americans murdered by Israeli settlers and soldiers, or do you work for Israel, not America? Post, okay? I just did that. Do it when you can, and if you can't, send it in. It's an easier way for us to track it. And Carl will try to get that to me as we keep going. And you could ask serious questions like that, or you could make fun of them. I got no problem with that at all. You could say what you really think about them, as long as it's not a threat, as long as it's not anything physical. And there's 1,000 things you could ask Ambassador Huckabee, like why did you meet with the traitor Jonathan Pollard? What tips did he give you for betraying America? Is there a transcript of the meeting? Can we hear what you two traitors talked about? Is there any justifiable reason at all to meet with a traitor like Jonathan Pollard, especially in secret? Why didn't you tell the CIA? Why didn't you tell the White House? What have you done to bring Alexandrovich back? What have you, out of the 10 Americans murdered by Israel in the last 3 years, there's not been one arrest. Are you gonna ask for arrests? Or do we serve Israel? And do you think we should serve Israel? Because in your version of the Bible, Israel's more important than America. Israel's more important than anything else. So should Americans be obedient to Israel? And do you represent our country at all? But there's a million things you could ask him and a million things you could tell him. So we hope that you take that opportunity and then share with us what you got, and I'll try to read it later in the show, including after the interview, okay? So this is our first time trying something like this. Let's see how it goes. Okay. Now, let's go to our interview. Now, joining me is Audrey Denney. She's running in California 1. That was a district that was actually a Republican district. This still is for the moment being, represented by Doug LaMalfa. But LaMalfa passed away a month ago. And so now that is kind of an open race and a really interesting one. Audrey, welcome.
Hello, it is so good to see you again. Do you remember interviewing me in 2018? I flew down to see you.
Yeah, I do. You ran against LaMalfa then, and
I did.
Yeah, and you had a fighting spirit, and I liked it, and I'm glad that you're back. So tell us how you're gonna win this one.
Man, so I am running my third and fourth consecutive congressional campaigns. As you mentioned, I'm running in California's first special election, which is in the pre-Proposition 50 maps, and I'm running in the midterm election in the post-Proposition 50 maps. The post-Prop 50 maps is a D+10 district. That's the safest Democrat district that they drew. A Democrat will represent that district, and it is going to be me as the candidate who is not bought and paid for by corporate and special interests, who actually works for people. And then in the previous California's first in the special election, we're gonna win by mobilizing Democrats to help them realize that we can take a seat back in the House of Representatives in June this year, substantially before our November midterm.
So Audrey, there's change in the air, right? So you ran against them in 2020, for example, and it was 57-43. So I've seen races that were farther apart. I've seen races that were closer, right? So that's not an impossible race, but it's also a difficult one. But today, there's so many voters disenchanted with all politicians, including Republicans. So are you seeing that in your campaigning in your district at all? Is there a ray of hope here that people can say, hey, maybe we should go, not just Democrat, but someone who doesn't take corporate PAC money and someone we could trust?
Absolutely. The disenfranchisement is across the political spectrum, right? It is disenfranchisement with Trump and his authoritarian fascist regime, but it's also disenfranchisement with corporate captured Democratic establishment leaders who are bought and paid for and serve, honestly, in some cases, the same corporations that buy and pay for so many of our Republican counterparts. And people are responding across the political spectrum, independents, no party preference voters, Dems, and Republicans, to our message of not only anti-corruption, get money out of politics, but let's get a government that tangibly, actively makes your life better by providing single-payer nonprofit healthcare, by making sure that we can make a living wage, and making sure that people my age in their 40s can actually purchase houses. Like these are the kind of things that make people's lives better, and that the Democrats need to actually make tangible change towards.
So let me ask you a number of quick substantive questions. So are you in favor of attacking Iran?
Am I in favor of attacking Iran? I'm in favor of always State Department diplomatic solutions first. I don't believe that bombs are a substitute for human rights and protecting and advancing human rights. My background, besides being an educator, I've worked internationally with human rights organizations, and I believe that we have to protect international and domestic human rights laws first and foremost, and exhaust any diplomatic solutions before we pursue military action in any context.
So I just want to be absolutely sure, you don't take corporate PAC money?
Never a dime, never will. Raised $3.5 million in my first two campaigns in an R10 district with a $47 average contribution size.
All right, and do you take any foreign government money, Israeli lobby money?
Never, no AIPAC adjacent. Not at all.
Tom Massey said that almost everybody in Congress has an Israeli handler. If Israel comes to give you, or as he put it, a babysitter or a handler, will you reject them?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So we can move on to things that actually affect Americans instead of spending all of your time working for Israel in Congress. So is that an issue at all in California, one? Because it's so, like, there's these giant national issues, and it's so hard to tell what filters down to particular districts. And the district races get such little press that it's further, hard to discern what's actually happening there. But is the issue of our government being subservient to Israel resonating in California one?
I'll tell you this, it absolutely has come up more in this race than it did in 2018 or 2020, because people are looking for a politician that will meet this moment in history with clarity and with backbone, and someone who will say, when the United Nations Human Rights Council calls something a genocide, it's a genocide, full stop. And so it is coming up in that context. But the majority of the things that I talk about when I talk to voters is about how they can't afford fire insurance because we live in this amazing, beautiful part of the state that has been ravaged by wildfires over the past decade. They're talking about not being able to afford their healthcare premiums, right? They're talking about not being able to afford groceries. So those are the things that are coming up the most. But absolutely, we're talking about foreign affairs more this cycle than in previous.
Yep. So do you know who the Republicans are going to be in the race yet, or do they have a primary? And do we know if they're taking AIPAC money?
I have a Republican I'm running against in the special election, and one that I'm running against in the midterm. The only one that has any sort of political record is Assemblymember James Gallagher is running in the special election. He's terming out of the state legislature. He's a Trump-endorsed MAGA Republican. This is his first federal race, so I'm assuming that he will take AIPAC money, but I don't know that for sure.
Okay, we don't know yet. I got you. Okay, so how about domestically? So there's the issue of affordability. There's housing prices. There's grocery prices. There's healthcare. What are the top 2 issues? Let's say that comes up in your district.
Yeah, well, I mean, the overarching issue is that combines all of those things that you talked about is the fact that our economic and political systems are centered around corporate greed and keeping corporations and the richest among us richer and in power. And so that ties into why we can't afford fire insurance, why we can't afford healthcare. And so the thing that we have to do first to make any sort of inroads on any of these issues is structural change to get money out of politics. And that starts by electing people like me who refuse to take corporate PAC money. And then it goes deeper into an anti-corruption agenda that includes things like figuring out how we can get a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United, making sure that we have a constitutional amendment to ban the president's pardon power, and making sure that we're stopping former members of Congress from becoming lobbyists so the cycle perpetuates itself. And so really, for me, at the center of this campaign, in order to actually enact an affordability agenda that we talk about, we have to make sure that Democrats aren't working for the corporations who are making money off of the backs of working people.
So, well, that's a great answer because you're a rare candidate that recognizes that you've got to get a constitutional amendment to get money out of politics. And then until you do that, you're gonna have trouble passing anything, right?
Yeah.
And so, Audrey, so I love that you said that, and that gives me a lot more faith in the direction that you would go, and you seem to get it for sure, not taking the corporate PAC money, knowing the right way to tackle that issue, et cetera. Now, what's gonna happen, and what our audience has been very burned by since 2018, is candidates come here and make a lot of promises. They tell us they're gonna be clean, they're gonna be progressive, et cetera. They get into Congress and then leadership tells them, be quiet and wait your turn. And they largely do. And they don't push back on $15 minimum wage, paid family leave, public option. I mean, forget Medicare for all, which we don't forget it. We want it, we demand it, we need to have it. But public option is a layup, polls at over 70%, et cetera. But every time progressives go in or populists go in and they're told to bow their heads, and almost every time they bow their heads. So Audrey, how do we know you won't bow your head?
Yeah, because I don't really want this job. I don't want to be a corporate politician. I don't want to be a career politician. I love living in Chico. I love working for food banks. I love hanging out with my 2 cats and watching birds in my backyard. The only reason that I'm running for Congress is because we are at a moment in history where every single American has to do something that they don't want to do. And they have to put themselves out there. And we need people who will stand up to Democratic leadership and say, hey, what are you gonna do? Fire me? I got elected by the American people. I'm a 41-year-old woman. I've been told to wait my turn for decades, and I am excited to go into the Democratic halls of Congress with a bunch of octogenarians and say, hi, I'm not gonna wait my turn. Progressives, the American people is waiting for us to actually deliver. And if that means that I don't get reelected in 2 years, well then cool. I'm gonna go back to working for food banks and hanging out with my cats. Sounds like a way better life for me. Anyway, that's how you can trust me.
Yeah, no, I told you I remembered your fighting spirit.
You wanna know what's fun about being a fighter? and being a woman is that people want members of Congress who are fighters, who will stand up. But as soon as it comes from a woman, and I say this coming off of the heels of the California Democratic Convention this weekend, when women show up with fire and passion and say, I know how to fight, it's received differently than men. So I'll just leave that there and say, I am now a perimenopausal woman and not gonna temper my righteous feminine rage for anyone. So I guess there's that.
Got to hook you up with the I've Had It podcast and Anna.
I don't know that, but I've had it. So
there you go. All right. First of all, I want everybody to know it's audreyforcongress.com, and when someone is running with no corporate PAC money and no foreign government lobby money, you got to help them. audreyforcongress.com, and we'll have the link down below. All right, let me ask one last serious question, then a series of fun questions for no reason other than getting to know you. So the serious one is, if you could, the one I always ask, if you could change the government to change one thing to get our government back, what would it be?
I would say money out of politics, but we've already beat that dead horse. So I would say abolish the Electoral College.
Oh, that would be amazing. Okay, that one's a very, very tough. I mean, money out of politics is already super tough. That one's even tougher, but I like that you're bold.
Okay. You said anything.
Yeah, so no, I did. No, I did, and that would be amazing because it is antiquated for sure. And of course, I agree with money out of politics too. All right, so now let's ask goofy questions for fun. What's your favorite TV show these days?
Oh, geez.
That weirdly stumps everyone. It does take everybody a minute.
Like I'm a little bit embarrassed. Like I'm that girl. I'm just like really excited for the next 4 episodes of Bridgerton to drop in like 3 days. I'm just I'm a girly pop, and I'm not ashamed of it. Also, we have the same birthday, by the way, March 21st.
Oh wow, cool. That's neat. Maybe we could celebrate by watching Bridgerton from the two edges of California. Virtually, but nothing wrong with Bridgerton. My wife and I watched at least the first season. It was fun. It's fun. Okay, what's your favorite meal?
My favorite meal. Right now, I've been putting. I have ADHD, and so I eat one thing completely, and that's all I'll eat for like a month at a time, and then I'll switch to something else. But right now I'm eating Costco cheese tortellini, but I pour it in Costco tomato soup and I microwave it, and I eat that like at least twice a day right now.
I like how you stick with one thing until it's done.
Oh yeah, that's my like neurospicy brain is like, I'm gonna eat this all the time for 3 months, and then I'll never eat it again, and I'll pick something else. So
okay. And then my favorite question of all time: what extracurricular activity did you do in high school? Sports, band, anything else?
I was a proud member of the Future Farmers of America. My heifer won grand champion at the California Mid-State Fair. I won not one, but 2 carcass contests. I'll let you figure out what that means. And I was also a state FFA officer for the Future Farmers of America in 2002, which is a pretty big deal, if I do say so myself.
See, that's why I asked the question, because you're the first one to have won a heifer award.
Yeah.
I hope it wasn't a red one. It's a different thing.
It was not that, no.
Okay.
My heifer was really pregnant at the time. I won an award with a pregnant heifer, so
okay.
Probably first person on your show to tell you that.
Yeah, no, I love it, and that gives you a sense of the district, and it's perfect. Last thing on that, no, you're not. Are you crazy? I'm not. You think I'm not going to ask? Yeah, what's a carcass award?
Okay, so when you show beef cattle that will be turned into meat, you show them what they say on the hoof, which is when they're alive. And then after they are harvested, they judge the quality of their meat for American consumers, and the best one wins, and I won twice.
Okay.
So there you go.
Okay.
Yeah. Memorable.
Well, if you take out some lobbyists in DC, maybe we can give you, but politically, rhetorically, okay.
Yeah.
The political carcass award, that would be kind of awesome. Okay. All right. AudreyForCongress.com, a real American that's going to fight for you guys. You can tell from the interview, and we talked to her before. if she was in California 1, we've got a beautiful earthquake and the American people rising up and saying we've had enough. Audrey, thanks for joining us again.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So, God, it'd be awesome if she won. That's my opinion. Okay, now, a whole bunch of you have started to do what we asked you to do with Mike Huckabee, okay? So, all right, I'm seeing already from Benjamin, I put Mike Huckabee in like a NASCAR outfit with basically, it should be Israel's flag. It's Star of David. He's got Israel's flag in the background, okay, on there prominently, right? And he's got other things in there as well. But I also love memes and GIFs. I still haven't figured out after all these years if it's GIF or GIF, but I'm down with it either way. So awesome. You kidding me? Give me more memes. Give me more GIFs. So that's great job, Ben. Navinix said in his tweet to Huckabee, could you tell your boss Bibi that we got flexible repayment options for the $300 billion that is owed to the United States? To paraphrase Miss Rihanna, Bibi better have my money. Nice job, Navinix, nice job. All right, these are great, I love this. We should do this more often, okay. Number 4, MJ says, Huckabee doesn't work for us. He's Israel's ambassador and a diplomatic nightmare for America. It's incredible how much damage he's doing to the Trump administration. Truth Revealer says 10 Americans killed by Israeli settlers, 0 trials. Israel tried raping American girls, 0 trials. That's not an Israeli, sorry, not all of Israel. Trials. Huckabee screams about Iran, silent on Israel. This is collaboration. Roses wrote in, where's the transcript from your secretive voluntary meeting with Trader Pollard, who passed USA secrets to Israel? These are beautiful questions. And Ragan writes in, it's obvious from the Tucker interview that Mike is a traitor to America. We see where his loyalties lie. That the NASCAR outfit was from someone else. Benjamin trolled saying, your head is way too small. Although I got family members with small heads. Anyways, here's another one. Let's go, let's have some fun with this, okay? Plus, wouldn't it be amazing if we did a whole bunch of posts on X and then people started going, yeah, wait a minute. Why aren't we extraditing Tom Alexandrovich? Why hasn't Huckabee done anything to extradite him? Why doesn't he represent America at all? Isn't that really weird? Okay, so Kelly K said, well, I always have to switch it to crap in order to be able to say it here, but crap posting Mike Huckabee was not on my bingo card for today. But now here we are, aren't we? Okay, so probably next time we'll put a hashtag on it to track it better. But this is how we learn, right? This is, oh, not that card didn't already suggest that to me, I just forgot. Anyways, but send them in today, send them in tomorrow. We'll try to track them. And if it's all it was just fun and it annoyed Mike Huckabee, fantastic, already mission accomplished. But if we can wind up getting to some sort of result, that would be even better. That would be fantastic. We'll let you know about that. And then if this begins to work, we can do it more and more and hopefully try to get more people to pile on. So good beginning, guys, good beginning. Okay, I think that's what I have for you today, but I'm gonna do a bonus episode for you guys right now. And I'm gonna tell you about a friend of mine who went to Israel and told me, he saw the Tucker interview and that's why he called me last night. And he told me that at the end of the story, I vowed to never go back to Israel again because of the humiliation they put people through. So I'm gonna tell that story for our members. So if you want, become a member by hitting the join button below on YouTube or tyt.com/join, which is, by the way, a little bit better to join that way for us. We'd love it if you do that. And we do give 2 months off, I think, for annual, 2 months off for annual membership. So if you do it through tyt.com/join. So do that now if you can. I'll come back and tell you the story of what happens when you go to Israel and you're of a particular ethnicity, okay? We'll do that when we return.